After that, Claire and Logan apologized to Clara for their irresponsible actions and behavior. They assured her that they would never lie or deceive her again, while also indirectly mentioning that they would not act inappropriately in front of them. Davis also watched this comical sight as he thought that it served them right. However, for the latter, he doubted that intimacy was something people could control whenever they faced their beloved. This horny couple. Davis shook his head, but in truth, he was just jealous. After all, he might be a child physically but not mentally. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't pent up mentally. His immature body didn't rather let him be intimate with women. This was undoubtedly a curse in his perspective. After this situation concluded, he bid farewell to Clara. He then made his way to his study. Just when he was halfway there, he got blocked by two fierce and aggrieved silhouettes. He suddenly grew to have a bad feeling about this when he looked at their two faces. "MHM. Why are you two here for?" His tone carried nervousness. Logan cracked his fists. "Claire, I think there's this one calf over here who doesn't understand his position. That rascal. How courageous of him to insult the Emperor and the Empress." Claire piped in, actually not knowing how to act unrefined. Davis took a step back as he felt something's about to happen. "What do you think we should do about this brat who thinks that he is so smart?" "I am thinking of..." Just before Claire could answer, Davis ran away. Davis tried to run, and when he was halfway at the end of the corridor, Logan captured him over his neck. "Claire, can I?" Logan grinned. "Permission granted. **T. Davis shouted inwardly. At that moment, he knew that his life became forfeit. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. After some time, Davis could be seen battered while being carried by Elia to his study with severe external injuries. Rumors spread about that one night in the royal castle, about how a lonely ghost screaming miserably can be heard at that time. Equals. A week passed slowly, and Davis's external injuries healed gradually. Today, he healed completely. His parents didn't let him heal quickly and grounded him for a week. They also made these as his punishment. "One day, I'll teach that horny couple what it means to suffer," Davis muttered as he blew his long blonde hair. He didn't quite think that they would injure him, although it wasn't anything severe as it did not leave any consequences. Claire just watched with a determined gaze while Logan gave all the beatings. Of course, he didn't mean what he said either, as he knew that he had rather gone overboard when he humiliated them in front of Clara. Who knows? They might have actually felt mortified to stand like a guilty convict in front of Clara. "Davis, since you are fully healed now, why don't we stroll around the royal castle?" Elia said with a sweet voice. She pretty much knew how he got injured, but she only laughed when he heard his plight. She truly became a friend, and only friends would laugh when their friends get injured over a silly matter. "Seems like a good idea." Davis stretched and stood up. He exercised his body and warmed up. He stayed in the study while recuperating his injuries and didn't go anywhere out since he was grounded, and that caused his body to be a little rusted. Only Elia was there for him at this time, mostly taking care of his injuries. "All right, let's go." Davis then held her hands as he dragged her out of the study. He then made his way to the Imperial Library with Elia in tow, wanting to get her some battle techniques that might suit her. Just when they arrived in front of the library, he saw Librarian Oxford. They both greeted each other, and just when he passed by, he was stopped by Librarian Oxford. "Prince, bringing a maid into the Imperial Library is forbidden," Oxford said with a straight face, and then added, "even if it is your personal maid." In the past of the Lowered Empire, the maids obtain favor from the royal members and sometimes cause chaos, and for this reason, their entrance to the Imperial Library was completely revoked. Other than this, there was also the matter of status to consider, so the maids had no say, and were completely suppressed existences. Davis narrowed his eyes. He had a good impression of the librarian before, and he still did have, but the next words he heard irritated him. You are just a maid, don't bite off more than you can chew. Librarian Oxford berated Elia with a cold gaze. Why yes, I'll just wait here for Prince Davis, Elia responded as she put her head down, a little scared. Just a maid. Davis closed his eyes because he felt anger. He didn't think the librarian would be this type of person. He reasoned that the other party was just doing his job, but the last sentence he uttered to Elia that would make her feel humiliated went quite overboard. Oxford. Davis suddenly spoke. Prince. Librarian Oxford trembled when he heard that shout. He had a vague feeling that his soul was suppressed at that moment when Davis shouted. I'll say the same, don't bite more than you can chew. Since when did you get the authority to lecture my personal maid? But. Librarian Oxford tried to explain. Davis widened his eyes, where is your answer? I dare not any more. Oxford put his head down. This shall be your last warning then. Davis nodded and stepped forward. Elia, let's go. But my prince. The rules say. Davis shot a look at Librarian Oxford, which ultimately shut him up. They then walked inside and searched for some battle techniques suitable for Elia. Prince, there was no need for that. I could have stayed outside and not cause you any trouble, Elia remarked dejectedly. She was happy that he helped her but knew that he would ultimately get into trouble for this event. He was just punished by the Emperor. How can he be so protective of me? She thought, a vague sense of affection filling her heart. There's no need to worry about me, Elia. Worry about yourself. Davis just smiled back at her. Elia's expression sprouted a smile back at him as she nodded. Davis thought that he had revealed her a little too soon, and the situation seemed like he was too protective of her. If word gets out, then trouble will soon follow her naturally, twisting that Elia, the personal maid, had seduced the little prince for whatever reasons the heavens forbid. He perfectly understood this but thought, whatever, at that time, I'll just protect her again. In any case, he wasn't afraid of trouble, and the only ones who would dare talk against him were his parents. He felt that his parents would rather not make this much of a problem since they gave him free rein, but that too depended on his actions that do not go overboard. Elia, since you just cultivate the same cultivation manuals as me, I'll find a suitable version for you as well. Elia nodded obediently, listening to his advice. Davis then went, brought out some books from the shelves, and returned after a few minutes. First of all, these are the copies of all the battle techniques I train in, but actually, I have already finished training in all these.
Hey everyone, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy the audiobooks, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support us further, consider becoming a Patreon member. As a member, you'll gain the ability to request the next part of a novel audiobook I've uploaded, depending on your Patreon tier.
He pointed at each one of these books and explained slowly. This is the Devastating Lightning Palm, a low-level sky-grade battle technique. It can cause a devastating effect if you manage to hit the opponent's body with your palm by using this technique. They will be in a sorry state as their internal organs will be fried at the targeted place. Listening to the description, she nodded her head. And this one over here is the silent erupting finger, also a low-level sky-grade battle technique. This technique is a little difficult to train in, other than that, it is a powerful technique that concentrates all your body tempering cultivation strength in your finger to erupt with incredible piercing power. This technique is useful for killing someone silently in the shadows. Hearing that, Elia's face went pale. She imagined her finger piercing into a person's chest. She restrained herself from retching right there and somehow calmed down. Davis noticed that something was wrong with her, but he continued anyway. He needed his new friend, Elia, to become a strong person if she was going to stay with him. This is the final one, known as Thundercloud Movement. This is the fastest movement technique that our empire currently possesses. It's a mid-level sky-grade movement technique. It creates a little sound that echoes like a clap of thunder when utilized. The first step you take while using this technique is an explosive step that you can use to quickly reach people's blind spot even in the 5th stage. So powerful. Elia gasped in astonishment. Even lower-grade battle techniques had more or less the same description, but the power exhibited would obviously be different. When used in sync with the first layer of Extinction Lightning Judgment, it shows an ability that's on par with a peak-level sky-grade technique, or so I heard. Davis indifferently pursed his lips. Davis learned a few battle techniques before, some that even uses his soul-forging cultivation. Except they couldn't be called battle techniques, but supporting techniques, also called as soul technique or arts in some regions. The soul techniques he chose were known as Dark Concealing Shroud Art, Soul Suppression Art, Sacred Mark Art, and Unholy Brand Art. Dark Concealing Shroud Art is a low-level sky-grade soul technique. It is used to conceal a person's presence, energy, and soul aura using soul force. The soul force exhaustion is minimum, especially at night since it is dark attributed. Davis would have been only able to use this support technique if he had cultivated in a dark attributed soul cultivation method, but fortunately, he had his death book, which emits a unique dark and evil-like energy which actually is compatible with the technique. He learned it when he tried to practice it. Soul suppression art is a peak-level earth-grade technique. As the name implies, it suppresses the target's soul, causing the target to face heavy pressure. If the target is weaker than the user in soul forging cultivation, then the target will not be able to make any movements at all, at least in theory. But if the target is stronger than the user, then the technique will provide a suppression effect depending on the target's cultivation level. When Davis found these two support techniques, the Sacred Mark Art and the Unholy Brand Art, he was shocked. These two arts were soul techniques that can be used to brand a person's soul, making that person into a soul slave. Even though the name Sacred Mark Art sounded righteous, it was no different than Unholy Brand Art. These two battle techniques, also called soul techniques, needed a person to cultivate either a light attributed or dark attributed soul forging cultivation manual. Davis decided to train in both since he had both the light and dark attributes from his Sacred Luminance Mist Soul Forging Cultivation Manual and the Death Book, as well as for various reasons, such as being able to throw his opponents off guard since it took only some of his time. There are many other battle techniques as well, but once you learn all these by yourself, even if you learn other techniques, it may not be much use since these are some of the top battle techniques we have. So what you are doing when you are in my study is secretly practice it. Now memorize these battle techniques. I'll stay here looking around for a few more useful techniques. Is it truly okay? If I get caught, you will be the one facing trouble, while I might possibly die. Elia uttered with some worry in her heart. It's really fine. Even if someone got a complaint, it would have to go through my imperial father. However, my imperial father is the only problem since I think my mother wouldn't bicker much. Well, I'll handle it at that time. Davis casually replied. Is he thinking that he is above everyone else in the Empire? Elia became dumbfounded. Though she was really happy and thankful towards Davis, she couldn't help but think that if he was an idiot, but on second thought, she knew that he was shrewd rather than an idiot. Davis would puke blood if he knew what she was thinking right now. Silently making progress on the battle techniques, they stayed at the Royal Library for a few hours. Davis saw many miscellaneous battle techniques. He took a liking to some of them and memorized for training in them at a later time. For example, the family disabling palm, which is aimed at one's kidney. It indirectly ruins a person's ability to use his member and renders it useless. The technique should be used precisely, or else it would only damage the target's kidney and not have an effect on the member. Another technique is called meridian crippling palm, which cripples the essence-gathering cultivation of the target if one can successfully sever the meridians. Although he garnered that it is useless for someone at the higher stages. Davis became interested as he thought of using the family disabling palm on his father, but after a moment of contemplation, he thought that it was too cruel to his mother, so he let go of his evil idea. In the end, he decided to learn these techniques, as they might be quite useful in this world. As he just finished memorizing these battle techniques, He went to look for Elia. Just as he saw Elia, he stood surprised. "Brother told you to learn here, you say?" An adorable voice echoed. A little child about 5 years old questioned with a cold gaze. "Yes, Prince Davis told me to learn these battle techniques, which he recommended personally." Elia looked left and right, waiting for the arrival of Davis. Once she caught sight of him, she shouted, "Prince Davis! Brother!" They then both looked at each other. Davis laughed, "Ha ha, Clara, I was just about to visit you." "Humph, you didn't visit me for a week." Clara pouted. "How could I? Didn't Mother take you to tour around the royal capital for a week?" "Yes." Clara's face brightened up. After that event, the relationship between Clara and her parents became normal again as they brought her out for a trip. The true reason they brought her out was to not let Clara find out about Davis's punishment, or else things would rather turn awkward between them again. Davis also didn't mention that to Clara, as he possessed a tacit understanding with his mother Claire. He didn't want to create problems either. "Good. Come, let me introduce you to my personal maid, Elia." Davis patted her head. "Elia, this is the first princess, Clara Lowrit, my little sister." Elia pays her respects to the first princess. She bowed down gracefully and smiled. "Personal maid? No wonder she would say that you told her to learn here." Clara nodded her head in understanding. "But that doesn't mean a mere maid can learn our sky-grade battle techniques, let alone stepping into the castle library. And the way she calls you Prince Davis, it's almost as if she is acting." Clara narrowed her eyes and gazed at Elia like a hawk eyeing its prey. Elia's smile froze. A second later, she looked at Davis for help. "Such accuracy. My little sister's kinda scary." Davis blinked. She only heard her say a single time, but managed to see the deceit in it. "Ha ha, that's my sister. Honestly, you have the potential to become a detective, but I won't talk about that right now. You see, Elia is my friend and she calls me Davis." "A friend? Not a maid?" Clara became confused. Davis coughed, "Both." "What? Which is first?" Clara looked at Elia and asked with anger. I am a maid, then a friend." Elia answered truthfully. She had no idea but thought she should not lie to this person since Davis seemed to be honest. "Brother. She seduced you?" Clara yelled as she stood in front of Davis and blocked him from Elia. Isn't that the opposite?" Elia inwardly cried while Davis face-palmed. "This is gonna be a headache," he thought. Clara, it was I who told Elia to call me Davis. I wanted her to become my friend, you see. How can a royalty lower oneself to be friends with a maid? Brother, this is atrocious and disgraceful." Clara looked behind and shouted furiously, though it still looked adorable. Elia put her head down in shame. In the end, her official identity was still a maid. There was nothing she could do about it. My life as a personal maid is going to end, probably even my life." Elia thought with a rueful expression on her face, afraid that she would be abandoned now that the secret was out. Davis couldn't get angry from little Clara's shouting because it just seemed totally cute and reasonable. Well, he couldn't blame her as he understood she just accompanied her mother as she toured around the imperial capital, probably looking down on the commoners loftily. Sigh. "Looks like I have a lot to teach her in the future." "Clara." He shouted to get her attention. "How are you going to explain yourself, brother?" Clara asked with an exasperated expression on her face, feeling that she was right. "You say that royalty shouldn't make friends with a maid. Then what do you think royalty is?" Davis calmly asked. Don't question me back. I know I'm in the right." Clara frowned, a sense of unease filling her heart. Could it be that I am in the wrong? The way her brother said it made her feel that way. "Just answer." Davis frowned as he glared her into submission. Royalty is of high blood and immense power. Commoners and even nobles are way below us in status and power. Clara softly replied as she never saw this side of her brother before. She slightly became anxious. Then do you think of yourself to be higher and more arrogant than any other person without possessing our kind of status? She stayed silent before nodding her head meekly. Then let me teach you a lesson. Davis shook his head. Clara took everything literally to the book, so there was no blaming her unless someone explained it to her. You feel that it is beneath your dignity to make a friend of lower status. She nodded her head again. Sigh. Clara, what if I say that there are more than 1 billion people who are way stronger than us, have a more powerful bloodline than us, but are still counted as commoners? What? This time, both Clara and Elia were astonished. How do you know that, brother? Clara shook her head, not believing it, but her eyes said the impossible was true. He paused before thinking, there's no way I can say that this is the normal template of a Xianxia novel, can I? There's always a person above a person, a peak above a peak, heaven above heaven, Davis replied profoundly. Our continent is sealed as far as we know. So even though we have many resources, it is probably the same as trash in the outside world. Elia and Clara made an O shape with their mouth, symbolizing that they were dumbfounded to the extreme. So Clara, do you still feel yourself to be of royalty? Even after knowing that there are billions of common cultivators out there who are stronger than us in this uncharted world? Davis looked at her with a sharp gaze. Clara shook her head hurriedly. So what do you think are the criteria for choosing a friend? If the compatibility between us is higher, then we can be friends. You remember what I taught in the past, very good. Then Elia and I have good compatibility. Do you now think that we can be friends even though I am of royalty and she is of commoner status? Clara looked at Elia before moving her gaze to her brother. She then nodded her head. Elia became inwardly astonished. She concluded that Davis had somehow managed to brainwash his little sister. Perfect. Then you can be friends with Elia too. Huh? Friends? Clara curiously asked as she thought, my very first friend. Yes, we can be friends with her, and we'll both have the same first friend. Davis shouted happily, trying to trick her into being friends with Elia like a kid. As far as he knew, being cheerful worked against Clara. Wait a minute, somehow this feels different. I feel like I'm tricking a kid in some other way. I'm no lolicon. Davis shouted in his mind. Same first friend. Clara's eyes glowed. She returned to her cool self and said as if it was a matter of fact, let us be friends, Elia. Elia had a helpless expression on her face as she looked at Davis for help. Davis just winked and imperceptibly nodded his head. Elia comprehended the meaning and sighed. Yes, Clara. Elia reluctantly smiled. How dare you say my name? Not again. Davis facepalmed while Elia froze like a statue. Equals. Somehow Davis managed to explain the stuff between friends. It took a whole lot of time to finally make them friends. Night finally arrived. He became tired and decided to return to his room, which was none other than the study. After a few minutes, Davis. Claire's voice could be heard outside the room. Mother. Come on in. Claire opened the door and stepped inside as she ran her fingers through her glistening blonde hair. What is it, Mother? Are you finally here to console me? Davis raised his brows once he remembered how she let him get beaten. Sigh. Claire sighed, I am indeed sorry for letting him beat you. Nevertheless, you still deserved it. Wah! Davis got his heart pierced by a spear. Though that isn't the reason I am here. I'm not listening anymore. Davis pouted as he turned his head away, acting spoiled. Claire ruefully shook her head, all right, your mother is truly sorry. I apologize, okay. She squeezed his face and kissed him on the cheeks. Davis smiled and shook his head. I'll listen. Claire smiled back, "Your father is going out of the royal capital for some business in a few days. I heard it was for the crowning of a new king in the Alfred kingdom. Normally, an emperor doesn't have to go out for a mere kingdom, but since it was under our jurisdiction, and we let them down during the war, he has to show them at least some sincerity." "I see. How many days will our father be gone?" "For all I know, it might range from a month to 3. Claire shrugged. This might be the perfect chance for me to sneak out of the royal castle." Davis thought excitedly, but he had a calm expression on the surface. He nodded his head. "Anything else?" Davis added. Claire thought a moment before replying. "Thanks to you, everything is now fine between Clara and us. Honestly, I didn't expect the problem was that." She paused and realized what she was about to say. "I know, Mother, I know. I'm not ready to receive another beating." Davis exclaimed and hurriedly shook his hand. "Scoundrel!" Claire blushed as she shouted and walked away, as if she ran away from the room. Mother becomes embarrassed so easily. Davis laughed as he looked in a direction. It was a good thing that Elia was in the bath. Otherwise, she might have noticed how easygoing he is with his mother. Equals. For the next few days, Davis used this chance to break through to the next level in soul-forging cultivation, and without failing a single time, he luckily reached peak-level infant soul stage. Other than that, he looked for a disguise art in the royal library. He managed to find one after a long period of search. It was a peak-level Earth-grade disguise technique, which pretty much conceals his appearance and physique. He didn't want anyone to know who he was in the first place. His actions were pretty strange these few days. He checked left and right almost every minute. Luckily, no one saw him acting suspiciously during these few days. Davis somehow managed to convince Elia to follow up. She had no choice but to reluctantly agree. He gave her instructions on how to make it look like he was always sleeping during the night. He planned to sneak out every night and roam openly during the day. He then, with his family, sent off Logan to the Alfred Kingdom on the final day. "Finally, I never thought there would be a day where that idiot will leave the Imperial Castle." Davis screamed like an idiot. "Who is that idiot?" Elia asked doubtfully. The Emperor, of course." Davis grinned and laughed. You know no fear." Elia looked at him with a dumbfounded expression, as she couldn't imagine how he could spout this nonsense. These two returned to the study after sending off the Emperor in the evening. "Listen, I'll sneak out tonight. Don't ask me if I get caught." Elia nodded as she knew this plan of his beforehand. "All right, at that time, you can say just that I snuck out without you even knowing, or you can even just say that I knocked you out and went somewhere." He then thought of something, "But if Clara is the one doing the questioning or she is present nearby, don't answer, just faint." Why?" Elia turned confused. "Simple, lies don't work on her, that's all." "If you say so." Elia had her doubts but chose to do as he said. Meanwhile, he went to visit everyone and played with Clara, and Diana while Edward Lowert, the second prince who was still a toddler, continued to sleep peacefully without a care in the world. This went on till he bid farewell to everyone and returned to the study in the night. In the study. He put on a peak-level Earth-grade black robe, which helps him to conceal his aura, but he only wore it as second-tier protection to conceal his true appearance when using the dark concealing shroud art and disguise art together. "All right, Elia, I'll be going now. Remember to take care and protect yourself." Davis prepared to sneak out. Take care." Elia replied worriedly. Davis nodded and left. He was as silent as possible when he made his way out, even though such secrecy wasn't required when he was using his dark concealing shroud art, which was way effective in the night. He remembered the guard's patrol routine during these few days, so he was able to avoid people on his way out. He didn't jump out of the Imperial Castle because he feared that he might possibly trigger a detection formation that sounded an alarm. Davis finally reached the entrance of the Imperial Castle and exited smoothly. Yes, I made it out. With a silent roar, he walked on the streets. He looked to his left and right and saw those buildings which called his feet to step on them. However, he didn't dare run across on top of the building, afraid that he might trigger a formation, though he genuinely wanted to do that since every fantasy character he read did that at least once. Such hindrance, I might have been able to do that in a starting village. Davis reminisced ruefully. There were a lot of people walking around the streets. Even at night, people were pretty active as cultivators didn't require much sleep at all in the first place. Sleep was just a luxury to the cultivators unless, of course, they tired themselves out. Should I visit Evelyn? It's already been a year. No. Maybe I should visit her secretly. Somehow he felt like he was having an affair on this lonely night. Davis shook his head and reflected, yes, it is just difficult to talk to her in public. If I don't talk to her alone, then it will be quite difficult to get a true answer from her. Reasoning it like that, he left the streets and made his way towards the Calden family manor, as he knew that he would not find her in the Calden pill store at this time. Even if he made his way to the Calden pill store, he knew that he would get caught as he would trigger a formation or possibly get caught by an expert while he sneakily enters the Calden Emporium. He arrived at the Calden family manor and maintained a certain distance from it. It looked like a Chinese-style manor. He more or less guessed that it would be like this since Evelyn wore a cheongsam. I did come, but now, how do I possibly let her know that I'm here? He had no idea, so he circled the manor, hoping to spot her through a window or something. He didn't use his soul sense, afraid that he might be found out by an expert nearby. Even the guards regularly patrolled the courtyards and outer streets, making it difficult for him to even enter the manor. After all, this was none other than the Calden family manor, a noble family manor. He went around and waited for a long time, but still couldn't find or guess which room she was in. Davis narrowed his eyes in exasperation, feeling that he wouldn't be able to meet her today, at least not without a well-thought-out plan, as he possibly couldn't get caught. Otherwise, he would just be humiliating his imperial family. He simply sighed and left the place. Just when he left, a beautiful lonely silhouette could be seen glancing out of the window, and that glance was towards the towering royal castle. A sigh escaped from that silhouette before it closed the window. Equals. Davis walked around the streets with his head down, thinking about what else he could do to enjoy his day out as he entered an alley. However, all right, you bastards, care to come out? He had a vague feeling that he was being followed right after he left the Imperial Castle, but he then just took it as his insecurity during the night acting up. But the feeling just kept getting stronger while he was circling the Calden family manor. After a moment of silence, a burst of eerie laughter sounded out. You sure are perceptive, but how did you get out of the Imperial Castle without triggering any formations, brother? Are you an expert assassin? Two silhouettes appeared in the alley, both clad in black robes. Maybe. Who are you two? Davis smirked as he sneakily used his soul sense on them, but he became shocked, his expression slightly changing. I didn't notice at first, but your voice is pretty young now that I hear it again. Haha, you can't be like that. You shouldn't probe fellow assassins like us. If we do that, then we will not be able to survive in this field. They openly took out their weapons and brandished them with aggressive poses. Now, brother, we can let this matter go if you promise to give us the method to bypass the Imperial Castle's formation. What do you say? Good deal, right? Davis knew why they would ask this because they were. Stop Bullsh * Ting, Case Farnwin, and Cooper Hawkwood. You want to get reported? I just wanted to say that. Davis inwardly smiled while his expression was one of ease. The two silhouettes went silent as they were dumbfounded right now. These two were precisely the two noble family heads who led the rebels and somehow managed to escape the purge of the rebels. Brat, I don't know how you managed to discover our identity. Humph, we'll take our leave now. Case Farnwin backed out as he thought it wasn't wise to go against this fellow, who could see through them even when they wore a disguise. And where do you think you two trash are going? Don't go too far. They both shouted as they turned to look back at him. Davis removed his hood while deactivating his dark concealing shroud art. With a grin on his face, he looked down on them condescendingly. You are the first prince. How can it be? Case Farnwin exclaimed. I never expected the first prince to be this powerful at this age. Cooper Hawkwood had his eyes go wide while a faint sense of excitement abruptly swept through his heart, making him feel exhilarated. Luckily, he was stupid enough to get himself killed this early. They both then looked at each other as they laughed madly. Ha ha ha. Within a heartbeat, Case Farnwin and Cooper Hawkwood instantly surrounded him from both sides. Surrender if you know what's good for you. Case Farnwin mockingly uttered. His eyes were eyeing Davis like a snake, ready to plunge its fangs over his neck. Or else you can say goodbye to your life. Cooper Hawkwood continued as he threatened with a wide smile on his face. However, he looked like a demented dog. It could be seen that they were desperate that Davis couldn't help but want to take advantage. Trash spouting nonsense. If you've got guts, go slay my father. Davis laughed as he shook his head, acting as if he was an arrogant young master. Oh, we'll do that in time. Unfortunately for you, he just left the imperial capital today. Case Farnwin grinned. He inwardly thanked the stupid prince for presenting an opportunity to get revenge. And you are the perfect bait for that, hee. Cooper Hawkwood laughed hideously. Now, don't be in a hurry. We have all the time in the world to talk. Davis had a stiff face when he said that and even took a step back. Humph, trying to delay for reinforcements. Won't work on us, brat. No, really, I just wanted to know who the mastermind behind your betrayal was. They went silent all of a sudden. I knew it. There was someone behind you, traitors. Davis exclaimed as if he just found out the truth. So what? We don't even care if you find out. Case Farnwin said with an indifferent expression. So what if a brat could guess it? It wasn't worth hiding anyway, or so he thought. What good is it if you even find out? You won't even be able to escape from us. Cooper Hawkwood sneered. As he said that, he made his move. Cooper Hawkwood, who was behind Davis, rushed at him at an incredible speed. Davis didn't move at all. He only glanced at the back calmly. Humph, weak and slow. Only useful for leeching off resources. Cooper Hawkwood thought that the little prince became frozen in fear. Just as he was going to severely injure the prince with his iron sword for making him miserable, he abruptly collapsed and fell over, crashing as he tumbled on the ground. Cooper Hawkwood dies instantly. Davis used his soul to write almost instantly as he saw Cooper Hawkwood make his move. Yoa. I'm just really glad that I managed to break through peak-level infant soul stage, or it would be quite problematic for me to kill you too. Davis sighed as he turned to look at his other opponent, who shrunk back in disbelief. You. Who are you? You are not the first prince. Case Farnwin dropped his weapon in fear. Hearing that, Davis sneered. Idiot. Now then, will you spit out the truth? Or? Case Farnwin turned back and immediately tried to escape without answering. He didn't even try to pick up his weapon, indicating that it was done on purpose to let his opponent's guard lower. TCH, coward. Davis still wanted to try out his newly trained powers on him even though he knew he couldn't win with it. He just wanted to know his current prowess before he proceeded to kill them. But he changed his mind after he confirmed that there was something strange with the rebellion. Case Farnwin immediately turns into my mindless slave. Dies when he hears my voice give the command die, Case Farnwin. Just as Case Farnwin tried to fly away, he stopped midair. He straightened his back as his eyes turned soulless. He turned back and dropped to the ground on all fours. Slave Case Farnwin greets master. Looks like no one can escape the death book's grasp as long as it's within my limits. Davis mused as he saw Case Farnwin really act like a slave. Although he had no idea how long the death book will keep Case Farnwin alive, but if it reached the limit, then it will immediately kill him anyway, so he wasn't worried. Who was the mastermind behind the rebellion? Davis asked without wasting his time. It was Emperor Trida. Davis's sapphire eyes flashed with killing intent. Ah, so it was that vermin. Now the war actually makes sense. Why did he target our empire, though? The Lord Empire is filled with riches with its peaceful disposition and mighty position in the Grand Sea continent with the previous emperor at the helm. No matter who sees it, it will be a big piece of the pie to the empires in the Grand Sea continent. What made you all defect to Emperor Trida? Davis narrowed his eyes. He promised us that the Hawkwood family, or we would succeed, as the royal family of this empire with his backing once we have successfully killed all of the imperial family members. The other noble families were tricked by us into rebellion for various other reasons. All of his replies were like an automated voice, answering the question like a doll. Certainly mindless. Davis sighed as he thought, killing Emperor Trida should be my father's job. Sadly, I have no use for this guy anymore. Davis instantly thought of killing him. But he hesitated. Wait a minute. Didn't he say something about assassin or something? Contemplating for a moment, he asked, You became an assassin? Yes, I have become an assassin. Why and when? After we lost the rebellion, we lost support from Emperor Trida. So I had no choice but to become an assassin to have my revenge against both Emperor Trida and Emperor Loret. Oh? Ambitious. And then, how did you two become assassins? We joined the Dark Earth organization to become an assassin. TCH. Davis became exasperated by his single-minded answers. Can't this guy just answer detailedly? He grudgingly thought before he remembered, all right, I forgot, he is mindless. Wait. Being an assassin. Isn't this a perfect opportunity for me to collect souls to refine? Hee. Davis's eyes glowed with an opportunistic glint. Feeling excited, he continued to question, what is the Dark Earth organization, and how does one join it? The Dark Organization is the strongest assassin organization in this continent. Its headquarters is rumored to be situated in the Trida Empire. It has branches all over the continent. One can approach a branch to register for being an assassin. One has to complete a mission from the branch to be a member. Oh, has branches all over the continent. Is there one here? There is a branch here. Where is it? Behind Violet Joy House, there is an entrance to the underground. That is where the branch of the Dark Earth organization is situated in. Joy House. Isn't that a brothel? His eyes shot wide open. But it makes sense because hiding behind a skirt is a means of camouflage as well. Does my imperial father know about this? Davis hesitantly asked. He knows. Right. Davis became dumbfounded, but it made sense. Guess offending an assassin organization is a dumb thing to do. The question is, should I kill this person right now? He contemplated again for a moment before deciding against killing him. He didn't want to alert Logan into coming home, nor did he want to have their corpses in his spatial ring lest someone finds out by any chance. Store his corpse in your spatial ring, and stay in a typical inn for a month near the Violet Joy House. Yes. Case Farnwin proceeded to store Cooper Hawkwood's corpse. And oh, where is the Violet Joy House again? Davis had a peculiar expression when he asked that. Case Farnwin's expression didn't change. He explained the location with a monotonous voice, and left on Davis's command. Davis didn't dawdle and made his way to the red light district. This time he disguised himself as a short old man while activating his dark concealing shroud art. Words couldn't describe how he felt while after finally arriving at the red light district. Davis swallowed his saliva as he looked around. He could see many women with transparent and loose clothing. They were all scantily clad and added a type of glamour to this street. Various types of women with different types of revealing clothes. They were all beautiful to a certain extent without any blemishes or pimples on their faces. Davis was cloaked, or else an older woman would have called out to him to enter their brothel already. Do they train in some beauty technique? Davis thought while staring at those women. They were all more or less beautiful, that he felt that they could be from wealthy families. Nevertheless, he chuckled, thinking that it was a good thing that he still hadn't hit puberty for some reason, perhaps of his body tempering cultivation, or else he would have a certain problem currently in the lower part of his body while gazing at them. Ignoring the debaucherous atmosphere, Davis followed the instructions of Case Farnwin to reach the Violet Joy house. When he arrived at that place, he felt immensely awkward at being out of place. He pushed aside those emotions and circled the Violet Joy house. While he circled the Violet Joy house, he could not hear any of those sounds that should have been normally heard in these kinds of places. A soundproofing type formation, huh? How convenient. While thinking about what other features this place had, he arrived behind Violet Joy house. There was a dilapidated door that was half open. One would normally think that this place is where they would procure the new women as slaves. Davis moved closer to the half-broken down door as he checked for any formations that might perhaps alert some people. Seeing that there was no formation in his vision, he relaxed and went inside. No formation. But that makes sense as well. It would only increase people's suspicion and curiosity if there was one right at the entrance. As he walked inside slowly while still being cloaked, he found a tunnel that led to an underground cellar. In the underground cellar, Davis could see a black-robed man was seated there in a chair. He went slightly closer to him and checked around for any possible routes. Unfortunately, he didn't find any routes but only found a formation. He then closed his eyes in contemplation. There's no more route, only a sentry is put over in charge at this checkpoint, guess I could only go through him then. Davis sighed. Having decided his next course of action, he spoke in a hoarse voice while still being cloaked. Are you the one who's in charge of selecting recruits for the Dark Earth organization? Who? The black-robed man who heard that fell from his chair from being spooked by Davis. Davis then stopped using his dark concealing shroud art, which made him visible. The black-robed man was now able to see the sudden appearance of a short old man, who was also clad in a black robe. Such concealment. Senior, you are surely an expert, which our Dark Earth organization needs. The black-robed man clasped his hands and bowed slightly. So, what's the method to join? Hearing that, the black-robed man was immensely joyful. He hurriedly explained the procedure for one to join the Dark Earth organization. For one to join the Dark Earth organization, that person must be able to complete an assassination mission handed over by a certain person, and for this place, that certain person is me. Saying that with an animated expression, he took out 3 scrolls and gave it to Davis. Normally, I would give out only 1 scroll for a recruit to complete a mission, but since Senior is so powerful, I can give out 3 scrolls. Senior can choose any one of them, and hand over the remaining 2 scrolls. Actually, this process in itself is unnecessary for you as it is clear that you will be able to rank at least as a peak-level Earth-grade assassin, but rules are rules. Without those rules, the higher-ups definitely will not be able to run this organization for much longer. The black-robed man explained that he was afraid that Senior would misunderstand why he was being given out such a low-level mission. Wait, I never said that I wanted to join this Dark Earth organization. Davis interjected while the black-robed man's eyes went wide in confusion. What are the restrictions your organization imposes on its members? Hearing that, the black-robed man now understood and chuckled. Haha, there's no need to worry about that, Senior. Our organization doesn't impose any restriction on its Earth-grade members and above. Only mortal-grade members are confined to our branches until they can achieve Earth-grade rank. With Senior's strength, the organization wouldn't restrict your movements and whereabouts at all. In reality, our members just register themselves with their nicknames or titles, so their real identity is even hidden from the Dark Earth organization as well unless they are stupid enough to reveal it. Good. With this, I will be able to increase my power quickly while assassinating people. Davis thought while celebrating inwardly. All right. Davis turned to look at the 3 scrolls. He opened the first one. Mission, assassinate Mark. Type, assassination. Grade, low-level mortal grade mission. Requirement. Description, a person who runs an orphanage near the Kyle restaurant in the imperial capital. His cultivation is at peak-level energy condensing stage. Target's image. Reward, low-level mortal grade dark organizations badge. Mission issuer, anonymous. Reading that, Davis furrowed his brows. A person who runs an orphanage. An innocent. He immediately closed it and saw the next one. His brows furrowed even further. It still concerned killing an innocent. Leave it, let's see the next one. He opened the last scroll and read it. Mission, assassinate Grimes. Type, assassination. Grade, low-level mortal grade mission. Requirement. Description, a greedy pig who rapes innocent young girls purely for fun. I was one of the victims. He lives near the slums of the royal capital, and is a local thug leader. His cultivation is around peak-level energy condensing stage. Target's image. Reward, low-level mortal grade dark organizations badge. Mission issuer, anonymous. Davis groaned in disgust. He handed over the last scroll to the black-robed man. I choose this. He then gave back the other 2 scrolls. I see, guess Senior doesn't like killing the innocent. That's fine as well. The black-robed nodded while looking at the mission contents. Davis narrowed his eyes. You're determining my character. It's not like that, but yes. For future references when I could possibly recommend some missions to you. The black-robed man shook his hands. Don't *T with me. Spit out the truth. Davis used his soul to pressure the black-robed man. He was in the peak-level infant soul stage, with his soul being 5 times as powerful. It would even work against a high-level young soul stage expert, much less this weak black-robed man. I apologize, Senior. It's a part of the recruitment. We have to see at least what kind of an assassin you are. The black-robed man blurted out in fear. Then what kind am I? Davis hideously grinned, his expression baleful. I think Senior is someone who upholds moral values. The black-robed man gulped. A few seconds passed further, making him tremble in fear. Humph. Davis then retracted his soul from pressuring the black-robed man, and turned back to leave. Next time, I should be careful of people probing me. He frowned while reflecting. Senior. Don't worry, when you return, I will keep some peak-level Earth-grade missions which are under your preferences so that you can climb up higher in rank. The black-robed man shouted. Davis ignored him and walked away while activating the dark concealing shroud art again. On the way outside, Davis saw 2 black-robed silhouettes. He gazed at them as he walked past them. The 2 black-robed characters minded their own business as they walked past him. However, it looked like they couldn't feel his presence as he perfectly hid without moving a muscle. Assassins. They look considerably strong too. What are they here for? Davis contemplated for a moment before deciding to check it out later. He went outside to complete the mission and come back as soon as possible before the night ended. He quickly went outside the red light district and asked a random person on the street for directions. That random person was seemingly disgusted that an old man had asked him about the slums. Hence, he quickly yet condescendingly told the way to get rid of the old man as soon as possible. After arriving at the slums, he tipped a random battered kid on the street side for information. That kid who received a silver coin happily told Davis the whereabouts of Grimes. The slums existed even in the illustrious royal capital, mostly used as a base for underground operations that couldn't see the light of the day. The buildings were run down and dilapidated like no one cared for them in years. Mostly thieves and criminals existed there. Commoners who had lost hope also lived their lives in utter waste as they existed here. After knowing where Grimes lived, he headed in a certain direction by jumping over the dilapidated buildings. Finally, I got to enjoy the thrill of running above the rooftops. Davis was feeling satisfied. He suddenly stopped on top of a certain building. From there, through a window, he could see a bald naked man asleep with a naked young girl lying over his shoulders. The young girl kept sobbing and looked as if the bald man had violated her. TCH, guess I should have come a little sooner. Davis clicked his tongue in anger and disgust, feeling pity, but he didn't know that even if he arrived sooner, it wouldn't have made a difference since this matter had taken place hours ago. Shut you yapping you bitch. Grimes suddenly woke up and kicked her aside. Ah! The young girl was sent flying, hitting the door as she cried miserably. Boss? Has anything happened? A sound came from behind the door. Nothin'. What the hell are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to scram away when I am enjoying my women? Grimes roared angrily. Why yes, boss. Grimes seemed like he didn't want anyone to interfere with his hobby of violating women, so he pretty much made them stand guard at the entrance of the building. But these underlings of him always come to peek at what he is doing, which more or less ruins his mood. Hee, don't try to act innocent, bitch. The young girl glared at Grimes with hate as he came closer to her. Let's start round 2, shall we? Grimes was getting turned on by her glaring eyes. I hope you die a gruesome death. The young girl spat out coldly. This is exactly what I want. That hate. I couldn't get enough of that. Grimes roared and was about to jump on her when a flash of light passed by him. Poochie. Grimes's eyes went wide-eyed as he glared at the young girl, who had her eyes widened in shock. In that hateful eyes shone a crimson reflection. Grimes looked down only to see blood flowing down in copious amounts down his body. He touched his neck only to feel that his throat had been slit as he collapsed. Davis held a crude dagger in his hand, which he found in this room. He undid his concealment once he killed him. Here, take it and survive out there, Davis said as he placed a sack containing 100 gold coins on the floor and covered her with an ordinary black robe, taken from his spatial ring. Seeing that the young girl didn't reply to him, he shook his head and left. After some time, the young girl came out from her reverie and kept muttering 2 words while sobbing. Thank you. Davis was on his way back to the Dark Earth Organization branch. He felt quite disgusted by Grimes, so he even killed his underlings, who were equally degenerated as him. His crude dagger sported a hole in every one of their heads, and within a range, no one dared to see what was happening as he chased and killed them. In truth, he just wanted that young girl to live without being chased by this gang, so he downright killed everyone in the building. As he reached that underground cellar, he saw that black-robed man again. I've completed the mission. A calm voice echoed out in the underground cellar. Bam! The black-robed man was again spooked as he fell from his chair. Oh, Senior. Could you please stop scaring the hell out of me? He pleaded in a begging tone. I'll try. Davis appeared silently. The black-robed man shook his head in frustration. Here, Senior. He handed a triangular dark red badge that had a dagger symbol on it. Davis took it and asked, Aren't you going to confirm my kill? He had the dagger and Grimes's blood on it, which might serve as proof. Oh I am sure that Senior wouldn't cheat with this inferior mission, and besides, we have our sources and informants. I see. Welcome to our Dark Earth Organization's branch, this way, please. The black-robed man activated a formation, and a curtain wall of the underground cellar disappeared magically. An illusionary formation? Davis commented on the wall, which disappeared as he looked at the narrow passageway. Yes, not only that but the passageway is filled with offensive formations as well. The black-robed man replied proudly. Cough, by the way, my nickname is Yellowbird 9. Senior can call me Yellow. Senior should soon decide a nickname to register as well. Davis nodded his head while thinking about a nickname. How about Pussy Destroyer 16? He thought of the names on the classic troll names on the internet as he smiled and shook his head. As they made their way through the narrow passage, they finally arrived in front of a door that can even defend up to attacks of third-stage experts. Naturally, it won't hold for a long time in front of those experts. Yellow opened the door with a triangular key, and they then went inside. Their vision suddenly became filled with a hall, big enough to accommodate more than 100 people. There was a reception counter, and a huge number of posters on every side of the wall. These posters were missions ranked according to their difficulty. All of these missions were only Earth grade, and mortal grade, as not a single sky grade mission was found. Davis scanned around the room with his eyes and saw many people, all of them dressed in black robes, wearing different types of masks, hoods, and all kinds of equipment that concealed their identities. He also saw those two black-robed silhouettes he met at the entrance earlier, as they wore a peculiar mask, having more presence than any other people here. Their aura was quite spooky, appearing to intimidate the people around them. As he gazed around, the others also stared at him with a measuring glint in their hardened eyes. Those two black-robed characters with peculiar masks only glanced at him before minding their own business, appearing as if they didn't care about a newbie like him. Davis and Yellow came in front of the reception. Yellow greeted the receptionist and told him about the recruit. The receptionist nodded and took out a jade crystal. Please record your nickname so that the headquarters can also get a copy of this jade crystal. Other procedures such as renewing your rank will be taken care of by us. Davis nodded and recorded his nickname in the jade crystal and gave it back. You are now officially a member of the dark organization, Dead End. The receptionist greeted. Oh, Senior is now called Dead End. Such a cool nickname that denotes when one meets Dead End, their life ends up being forfeit. Yellow shamelessly bootlicked like an obedient dog. You sure can bullsh *T. Davis rolled his eyes as he thought about the future. But that will be true soon enough. I'll come to the point. I want to take a sky grade mission. Davis's hoarse voice echoed out. The surroundings went silent all of a sudden. After a second, there was full of murmurs and noise in the hall as they minded their own business as if nothing happened. This Dead End, you can only take those missions if you are a peak-level Earth-grade assassin. Yellow muttered while giving an apologizing look. Then give me a peak-level Earth-grade mission, Davis said calmly, not at all fazed by the weird and awkward looks thrown at him. This Sigh, fine. We will make an exception in respect to your strength, Dead End. Yellow took a chance at gaining a promotion while making it seem like he suffered a huge loss. Every member who is not an assassin, especially a recruiter, had a slot. If the person they recommended completed the mission, then they might be rewarded or promoted. But if the person one recommended failed, then that one will lose credibility and receive a punishment. They couldn't just recommend anyone if they aren't fairly confident about them. Then please choose a mission that is on that wall, the receptionist pointed in a direction. Davis then approached that wall, which was gold-plated. Various posters could be seen. He used his soul sense to scan all of them and excluded anything related to killing innocents, as he guessed these were all issued from sinister people anyway. After a moment of contemplation, he chose all the peak-level Earth-grade missions that involved people who deserved to die. There was a total of 5 missions he chose. From that, he picked one and handed it over to the receptionist. Mission: Assassinate Harmon. Type: Assassination. Grade: Peak-level Earth-grade mission. Requirement: High-level Earth-grade assassin and above. Description: This person massacred a whole village near the Alfred Kingdom about 40 years ago. I don't know why he did it, but it looked like fun for him. I worked my whole life for issuing this mission, for someone to find and kill this person. His cultivation base is approximately at peak-level revolving core stage, peak-level iron stage, mid-level infant soul stage. Whereabouts are unknown but were last seen in the Alfred Kingdom. Target's image. Reward, peak level Earth grade Dark Organizations badge, 1,000 platinum coins. Mission issuer, anonymous. Receiving the mission poster, the receptionist went wide-eyed while Yellow hurriedly explained. This mission, it's not possible to complete it in a few years. We have no clue where the target is, even with our intelligence network. Besides, the target trains in all 3 cultivation systems, which makes it all the harder to kill him. Disregarding the current whereabouts of the target, this target is even hard for our sky-grade assassins to kill, as he knows so many escape techniques and arts. For that reason, this mission is still not yet completed even though it was posted more than 10 years ago. Davis didn't reply while the receptionist kept looking at Davis. Then I'll assign you to this mission. There are already 3 sky-grade assassins, 7 peak-level Earth-grade assassins, and 2 high-level Earth-grade assassins working on this mission currently. Oh, can't I take multiple missions? You can take multiple mortal-grade missions but not Earth-grade missions. For that, you need to be an Earth-grade assassin. The receptionist explained calmly. I knew it. Davis frowned and walked away with Yellow. So who are those 2 assassins? Davis discreetly pointed at those 2 whom he met at the entrance today. They're sky-grade assassins, most likely assigned to a sky-grade mission, as they wouldn't bother to take a low-level mission unless they're injured. Yellow glanced at them and answered. Sky-grade assassins deployed here. Guess it must probably have to do with assassinating a powerful person. Davis guessed. Seeing Davis deep in thought, Yellow reassured. Don't worry, Senior Dead End. You'll be able to do sky-grade missions once you complete your current mission. Hee hee. Davis chuckled hoarsely and nodded his head wisely as if he were an old man. He then left. Well, aren't you in deep trouble now, Yellow? That person will not be able to complete this mission so soon, leaving you hanging in anxiety all year long, ha ha ha. The calm receptionist suddenly changed his tone and spoke in a teasing voice. Sigh. There's no way I can take it back. Leave me alone, all right. I'll just have to hope that he'll complete the mission at least before 10 years, Yellow sadly uttered, worried about his future. Yeah, keep dreaming, Yellow. The receptionist laughed as he mocked. Equals. Davis wasn't worried about finding Harmon because Harmon would come to him with a single move. All he had to do was write his target's name in the death book while knowing their face, and the target will be dead in no time. Davis only needed to know the name and face of a person to kill him using the death book, albeit it had some limitations. Nevertheless, he needed Harmon's body to prove his death. Hence, while returning to the Imperial Castle, he thought of a plan and executed it immediately. Harmon. A sudden thought compels him to show up stealthily near the south gate of the royal capital in the Lowered Empire within 10 days. He stays in that place, searching for clues on what compelled him to show up at this place. If he hears the words "you will be paralyzed," then his body will be paralyzed. He waits there until a certain person shows up to end his life. Davis smiled at these words and looked at the sky. Seeing that it was almost dawn, he returned to the Imperial Castle and safely entered his study without any hassle. Elia, I've returned. Has anything happened? Bang. Davis suddenly appeared in the study, alarming Elia. She leaped in shock and hit her head on the ceiling. He ruefully pursed his lips as he cast an apologetic gaze at her. Looks like I have to stop emerging behind people. Wah, Davis, you dummy. Elia yelled and then mumbled with a tearful expression on her face. Well, I'm sorry, I won't do it next time. So, did anything happen while I was away? Davis chuckled and asked. He was not at all feeling sorry but enjoyed bullying her. Other than the fact that you scared the life out of me, nothing important happened. Elia glared at him as she pouted. Ho ho. You are taking care of yourself. Keep up the good work. Davis patted her head. Elia evaded his gaze while still pouting. Right, don't forget to practice those battle techniques now, and whenever you have the time. MHHMM. Elia gave him a noise of acceptance. Equals 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 equals. The following 3 days, Davis stayed at the Imperial Castle to avoid suspicion during the day, and went to the south gate to spot Harmon at night. Unfortunately, Harmon still didn't appear. Davis guessed that he was probably on his way, so he wasn't impatient. Today was the 4th day. He planned to visit Evelyn a few days ago, so he sent word to the Calden family manor 2 days ago to them be prepared, although that wasn't his intent but done for imperial reasons. This time, he was accompanied by Elia, and the same elite royal guards who accompanied him last time. Davis arrived at the Calden family manor, which he tried to infiltrate 4 days ago. His goal was to make contact with Evelyn and somehow tell her to meet him at night. He knew that he and Evelyn would not be able to talk to their heart's content when surrounded by people, so he wanted her to meet him alone. He got off the carriage only to be greeted by a whole crowd of people who shouted, "We warmly welcome and pay our respects to the first prince." The whole crowd then systematically bowed. Davis was flabbergasted as he surveyed the scene. He was again reminded that he was a person of high status. Being cooped up in the Imperial Castle all day long, reading and learning about cultivation while cultivating left him a bit out of reality. "Raise your heads," Davis said with a calm face, and although he felt a little awkward, he didn't let it show on his face. Such bearings. Truly a son of heaven. So cute. Various murmurs echoed around, but it only made Davis want to hide in a hole. "I only just acted," he thought ruefully. There was a limit to how much people could bootlick, right? "Welcome, Crown Prince Davis. My name is Henry Calden, an elder of the Calden family. If you will, please let me show you around the Calden family manor." "All right." Hands behind his back, holding his head straight, Davis replied. He then followed Henry Calden while Elia and Renard followed him. They arrived at a hall where many people were gathered. Many had looks of excitement while some were gazing at him calmly. Davis didn't take heed to any of the reactions as he quickly got bored but looked around to admire the architecture of the manor. He just sat down on a chair without greeting anybody here while Elia and Renard stood behind him. Some people who didn't like his arrogance narrowed their eyes, yet they couldn't possibly question the crown prince, could they? "Let me get to the point. I announced 2 days ago that I would personally visit Calden family, but my purpose here was to meet Miss Evelyn." "So, where is she?" Davis scanned around and adopted an arrogant young master's attitude. Hearing that, some people were overjoyed while some others frowned. The people who were happy were all elders. They thought that the crown prince was finally smitten with the beauty of their young mistress. They were afraid since a year ago when the prince said it was fine for her to back out of the marriage, especially after a year passed with no news of the imperial family saying anything about it. But it now looked like there was no need to think like that. All who frowned were young enough to make many mistakes. They didn't seem to like the tone of the haughty prince. Even though their family was using Evelyn like a tradable item, she was still immensely beautiful in their eyes. So some of them were jealous of giving her to him as a concubine, even though they don't have a chance to be with the young mistress of their family in the first place. Although most of them were Calden family members, some of them were not directly related, meaning they could marry each other as long as the elders accepted. "Haha, the prince is sure eager to meet our young mistress." A random elder shook his head. "She will be here soon. No need to fret, Crown Prince Davis." An old woman added, and her robe indicated that she was also an elder. Davis nodded his head as he inwardly tried to measure their strengths. 1 or 2 of the elders definitely have a big presence. They must be at the 4th stage, maybe at the peak level. He thought while he felt the pressing need to appear forceful and arrogant. Otherwise, people wouldn't seriously consider his words, especially looking at his age, and his childish yet attractive face that perfectly suited a future silk pants image. A group of young people suddenly clamored. Everyone turned around their head to see a beautiful woman walking towards them, followed by a maidservant. Davis's jaw almost dropped, but his mouth was slightly agape. Damn. What a vixen. If a mosquito was present beside him, perhaps it would have a chance of going into his mouth. Evelyn looked like an enchantress with her seductive figure. She wore a bright purple sleeveless cheongsam which accentuated her curves. Her cleavage was slightly visible as a triangular-shaped cut was present on her dress. Her long green hair reached her waist, and her side hair had been tied up in a small bun behind her head. Davis automatically stood up like a man who has been smitten, and arrived in front of her to greet. "I hope you've been well, Miss Evelyn." He clasped his hands. "Prince Davis is too caring. I've been well from the time you left after seeing me last time." Bowing her head slightly, Evelyn responded with an indifferent voice. "Ha ha, I see." Davis chuckled awkwardly. The way she said it, there seems to be a hidden meaning behind it. He slightly thought, though he couldn't tell if her meaning was positive or negative. After that, everyone took their seats on the dining tables, respectively, leaving the two who were engaged to their devices. Davis and Evelyn were seated opposite each other on the same table. There was a huge feast prepared for everyone to munch on, so they more or less only had their eyes on them while their mouths to the front. "Miss Evelyn, today I came especially here to see you." Seeing that it was abnormally silent at their table, he started the conversation. "See me? You flatter me, Prince Davis." Miss Evelyn still replied indifferently. However, when her luscious lips moved, it was as if a spell was cast on him. "Yes, truth be told, I thought of you many times after that day we last met." Davis told the truth in all honesty, as he did think about her from time to time. Those peaks, that beautiful lazy eyes, and her seductive voice. "Ha ha, the prince sure can joke around." Evelyn rolled her eyes as she said nonchalantly. Davis made a wry expression on his face. His compliments probing was done, and he now knew that he somehow made this woman angry. Time passed as the two finished eating in this awkward atmosphere. No one disturbed them, but they were just listening to their conversation silently. The two of them exchanged a few pleasantries from time to time, but the conversation didn't seem to be progressing anywhere, especially with Evelyn taking a defensive stance. Even an idiot can tell that she is angry with something. Did I offend her? When did I do that? Davis ruefully thought as he contemplated. He already thought of the matter where he left her alone for a year without giving any word, but surely, she would not expect word from a child less than 10 years old, right? In fact, with all the work piled on him, he expected her to send him a letter or something, saying that she wants to decline the marriage or something, but nothing came to him. To him right now, she was not a priority. But to the future him where he wished for a family, she was a priority. That's why until he stacked and built a certain amount of cultivation, he didn't go see her. Davis pondered for a while but couldn't find when he had made a mistake. "Miss Evelyn, I can see that you are angry. If I had offended you for some reason, then I apologize. Let's forget about our status and have a fair talk for once, shall we?" Evelyn widened her eyes in disbelief. She didn't think that this little kid would have the capacity to behave like a gentleman and give an apology. At least he has the capacity to think like an adult for his age, and for that, I guess I should be thankful. "That's right, Evelyn. Why are you throwing a tantrum in front of a child? Are you an idiot?" she asked herself as she almost blushed in shame. How do the royal family even bring up a child like that? She felt that she didn't even have the level of mentality that Davis possessed. When she saw Davis at the hall, at that moment, she thought that she should release all her frustrations on him, which will make him cancel their engagement. Now, all that frustration that made her suffer seemed like her own misconceptions after he apologized. She managed to regain her bearings as she finally smiled. "I'm also apologetic for making the crown prince worry for my sake just now." Davis, who saw that smile, became a bit mesmerized. "Prince Davis." Evelyn saw that Davis suddenly froze while gazing at her. She asked with a bit of worry, as she had slightly taken a liking to Davis. She thought that she might have somehow offended him slightly now. Davis woke up from his reverie as he decided on something. He placed his elbow on the table, interlocked his fingers, rested his chin on them as he smiled. "You're too beautiful, Miss Evelyn." Badump. Her heart skipped a beat as she froze for a second before feeling content for some reason. "You jest, Crown Prince. I am aware that I'm not that beautiful." Evelyn felt cheerful. Truth be told, Davis wasn't immune to beauty at all. Because he held back in his previous life, he wanted to live the fullest in this life, and almost decided on this woman. He liked her and wanted to make her his if she liked him back, but he always has to take the first step as a man. "I've got a gift that I wanted to present to you, Miss Evelyn." He took a chest out of his spatial ring as he said that. Evelyn stood up in shock as he didn't expect a gift. They both had stood up. He came close to her and opened the chest. Inside the chest was a peak earth-grade pill, which emitted a unique fragrance. Isn't this the core expansion pill?" A knowledgeable person nearby shouted once he saw the pill. "Core expansion pill? The one that is said to be difficult to refine because of scarce materials?" Another person asked in confusion. "Yes, this is the core expansion pill, which is used for one to advance a level in revolving core stage regardless of which level you are at. It can even increase the chances of one reaching the body transformation stage, hence the scarcity and rarity." Davis replied with a small grin on his face. "Whoa!" The surroundings clamored, becoming awed by the imperial family's wealth. They could produce peak Earth-grade pills too, but not gift them as easily as the royal family. Evelyn looked flabbergasted. "What did I do to deserve this valuable gift? Could it be that he has truly taken a liking to me?" Evelyn thought but didn't move to take the core expansion pill. Even her Calden Emporium would not sell this easily if they managed to make or procure one. "I insist," Davis said softly. Seeing that Evelyn still didn't take the chest from her, he pushed it to her as he closed in on her and whispered in her ear. "In the chest, look below the pill holder after you're alone." Feeling his hot breath, Evelyn's eyes widened as she blushed visibly. Davis moved back and smiled at her. "Since the prince insists, then I won't refuse. I thank the crown prince for his bountiful present." Evelyn slightly bowed as she held the chest. Her blush still didn't disappear, but she wasn't flustered. She only appeared more beautiful. She then took that chest into her spatial ring. Seeing the chest disappear, many cultivators in the revolving core stage and even below were extremely jealous, but they couldn't do anything about it. "Then I bid farewell to you, Miss Evelyn." Davis turned around and continued with clasped hands. "I thank the Calden family for the sumptuous feast. It was delicious. I'll take my leave now." He then left with Elia and Renard while they joined up with him as he left. Henry, who was an elder, and a few others, accompanied Davis until he reached the carriage. They spoke some pleasantries while trying to make a good impression on Davis. However, no matter what they said, Davis deflected them with his eloquent speaking that he was improving on from today. Without causing a ruckus, he then bid farewell again and left the manor. After some time. Calden family's manor in Evelyn's room. "Miss, why didn't you reject the gift? If you did, then I think that you would have made him so angry that he would have decided to cancel this marriage with you." "Maisie, you sure can imagine. I don't think that level-headed child will fall for that trick. Besides," Evelyn said as she blushed but stopped midway. "Anyway, miss, please take out the core something pill for me to see quickly." Maisie acted spoiled in front of Evelyn. Their relationship was amicable and good since they were together since childhood. Hearing that, she suddenly remembered the words Davis whispered to her. Thinking of that unfair action of his made her blush a little again. No man or even a boy has ever gotten that close to her. She nodded and took out the chest from her space ring. She immediately opened it, was suddenly anxious to see what was underneath the pill. Whoa! This pill has a good scent. One sniff and I can tell that this enhances my energy condensation stage cultivation. Maisie took in deep sniffs as she felt intoxicated by the unique fragrance. Evelyn handed her over the pill and warned her, "Don't you dare eat it. I need it too." I know, hee hee. Maisie innocently laughed and took the pill from her hands as she returned to being intoxicated. Using this chance, Evelyn removed the pill holder in the chest and saw a letter and a jade crystal. A letter? And a jade crystal which breaks when the other one is broken. She took out the letter and read it. "I want to talk to you alone, Miss Evelyn. Possibly, during the night when no one is around and able to interfere with our decisions about the marriage. I know that you'll be watched during the night if you go out, so I want you to stay in the Calden Pill store these few days to avoid suspicion. I'll somehow sneak out and come to the Calden Pill store in these few days to meet you. I'll break the jade crystal signaling that I am in the Calden Pill store, so I hope you will be there as well at that time. He wants to meet me in the night. And alone." Indecent thoughts swirled around her head as she considered various possibilities. But as soon as she saw it was about the marriage, she calmed down. Well, a little boy would never be that devious, I guess. She contemplated for a moment before ordering. "Maisie, prepare a few things. We'll be staying in the Calden Pill store for a week. Also inform my father about it as well." Okay. Maisie glanced at Evelyn for a moment before continuing to sniff, circulating her cultivation manual. 1 week. "I'll wait for you for a week, Crown Prince Davis," Evelyn softly muttered as she stored the letter in her sleeve pocket. It was unknown what she had decided just now, but her gaze appeared curious and determined. Davis, who had returned to the Imperial Castle, couldn't wait to see Evelyn alone, as he now liked her to a certain degree than any woman he had seen in his previous life as a mortal. In the study. "Davis, what happened?" Elia asked Davis with a weird expression on her face. Nothing happened. No matter how I see it, you're smiling creepily from the time you entered the study. Don't tell me you have been seduced by that Vix, your future concubine. Elia almost screamed but held back at the last second. Only did Davis realize that he was smiling like a fool after checking his face. Have I been seduced? Or did I fall for her by myself? There is no way she could have seduced me. My soul is more powerful than hers. Davis thought as he slapped his cheeks. It's not like that, but I think I have started to like her. Davis replied sheepishly. Didn't you say that you will release her from this marriage if she doesn't like you? I did say that, but now, if she said that she didn't like me, then I will just have to make her like me. You're going to use unscrupulous means? Elia had her eyes widened. Hey! I never said that. Davis hit her head lightly while Elia pouted. I won't do that, and she's not taken as far as I know. I'll try my best to win her heart since it is rare for me to like someone in the first place. Elia glanced at him complexly before as she asked, what if you can't? Only time will tell, Davis said with a profound expression on his face. What time will tell? You'll only bully her just like you bullied me. Elia thought hatefully. She didn't know why, but she almost felt slighted. Equals. Night came as daylight hastened away. Davis snuck out smoothly as he was pretty used to this now. He made his way to the southern gate, hoping to spot Harmon again while using his soul sense to scan the area around him. Fuck. He blurted out loudly as he could see many people fuck in their rooms, bathe in their restrooms. His soul sense was mostly concentrated on women for that moment, as if it was natural instinct before he quickly pulled back his soul sense. Ah, my soul. Davis held his glabella. What the hell? Why didn't these people set up stronger formations around themselves? I can see them fucking around like dogs. Arg. Why didn't the novels I read mention this before? Davis had every cell of his brain turn hostile to the authors of the web novels he read. He took a deep breath to calm himself down. This time, he used his soul sense to avoid the places where he last saw people acting indecently. His soul sense can extend up to 15 kilometers, while normal peak-level infant soul cultivators can only extend their soul sense up to 3 kilometers. This again proved that Davis had a very powerful soul. Since he was at the infant soul stage, and had a soul comparable to young soul stage experts, he felt that he could truly summon his soul out of his body. And as a matter of fact, he did try to summon out his soul when he was in the mid-level infant soul stage, and he was able to summon it smoothly. However, when he summoned his soul out of his body, he realized that he couldn't control his body, to his horror. He was dismayed for a second before calming down because it made sense that he was unable to control his body with his soul being outside. He then thought that he would be able to control his body after reaching a higher stage in soul forging cultivation. He tried performing some battle techniques in the soul form. Body tempering cultivation and its related techniques were totally useless in that form, as he was not able to cast them without circulating his energy through the relevant meridians. He could only unleash his soul forging cultivation and a bit of essence gathering cultivation. But the essence gathering cultivation techniques he cast were weak, insignificant, and couldn't bring harm to another cultivator, so he realized that his soul form could only be used to escape in a life and death moment. Just when a few seconds passed, Davis's eyes lit up. He finally arrived. Davis became jubilant because he wouldn't have to waste his time while waiting for this target anymore. There was a shady silhouette in the alley a few kilometers away from the southern gate. That silhouette looked as if it was searching for something or inspecting something. Davis knew that the silhouette was his target because his soul sense could penetrate the silhouette's concealment and disguise without even alerting it. Harmon would only find if Davis's probing was deep, like inspecting his body for a few seconds. Otherwise, he wouldn't feel a thing. This applies to almost all cultivators, and that's why powerful soul cultivators were deeply feared. Their ability to probe someone without that someone being able to notice the probers often left them paranoid, especially when they do something wrong or sneaky. Who would want their privacy to be invaded? Davis casually moved and headed to the alley where Harmon was at. After a few minutes, he arrived at that place silently. "What are you searching for?" Harmon, who was minding his own business, was startled. He quickly stretched his soul sense out and began to look around for the source of the voice. But to his astonishment, he couldn't find anyone with his high-level infant soul stage cultivation even after probing. Suddenly he felt his senses tingle, telling him to dodge. Without hesitation, he quickly dodged sideways. Splat! Blood gushed out of Harmon's neck in the side as he felt his neck corrode and burn. He immediately tried to suppress the rampaging energy, but to his surprise, he found out that he couldn't stop it even though the prowess of the essence energy running berserk inside him was of energy condensation stage. "What is this? Who are you?" Harmon shouted fearfully as he totally lost calm. He could instantly tell that his foe had a powerful soul forging cultivation. Davis deactivated his dark concealing shroud art. He still had his disguise on. TCH. What is a vermin doing sneaking around the imperial capital? Senior. Are you one of the cultivators from the imperial family? I guess we are fated, so there is no need to fight. Suddenly, Harmon's eyes abnormally glowed as he looked at Davis. What the hell is this person saying? Davis was confused but still had an indifferent expression. Senior may not believe me, but I received divine intervention from the heavens to come to this place and wait for something or maybe someone. Since Senior is here, then it must be related to you. Harmon hurriedly explained. Ah. Davis finally understood. As I expected, it looks like the death book can even really whisper into one's soul and deceive them. Or did he believe himself to be a chosen one and got delusional? Since things were like this, Davis decided to play a little with Harmon's delusions before killing him for good. Haha, this was just a test. If you had failed, then the heavens had commanded me to kill you. Davis laughed in a hoarse voice. Then, did I pass? Harmon asked doubtfully. What do you think? Davis approached closer to him. Since I was chosen and have successfully dodged your move, then I can say that I have at least passed. Harmon deduced but still took a step back while seeing Davis near him. He was still a little fearful of the pain. Yes, you have successfully passed. Davis smiled. He was now in front of Harmon. Really? Yes. Harmon clenched his fists in delight. He felt that the heavens weren't wrong, and that his strength was going to leap soon in a short amount of time starting from now. Davis felt a bit idiotic himself to look at this cold-blooded idiot believe him with only a bit of doubt. How could it be like this? He snorted and tried to see how far the effect of the death book can influence the target. But I don't think the heavens require your help anymore, so could you please die by killing yourself? What? Harmon, who heard that, felt as if he had been thrown into a pit of despair. He couldn't believe what he heard, as he had just believed that he had received the grace of the heavens at this moment. However, this farce lasted just for a moment before he turned around without saying anything, trying to escape. I see. It doesn't affect his personality if I don't write about that specifically, huh? Davis thought as he inwardly chuckled. Harmon. Sadly, you cannot defy the will of the heavens. You will be paralyzed. Harmon, who tried to fly away with his revolving core stage cultivation, plummeted down the alley as he crashed. What? What have you done to me? He bellowed in confusion, but only incomprehensible words came out of his mouth. Then he sent him a soul transmission. Oh, that, I said that you could not defy the will of the heavens, so you will obviously have to die. Davis casually replied. With the death book, his opponent had become totally confused and almost did not seem to know left from right. Spare me. Davis stood in front of him and lifted him up as he grabbed his collars. Huh? Spare you? Why didn't you do that when you massacred a whole village? When you massacred dozens of villages? They should have said the same, no. No way, even if I massacred, the heavens chose me, so how could I die? Harmon shouted with rage clouding his mind. Ah, now I get it. This person is twisted and probably broken somewhere. That kind of explains his massacring hobby. Davis thought as he shook his head. But hearing his self-confident delusional statement, Davis snapped. I don't know how trash like you can think of the heavens helping you. Even if the heavens are neutral, they surely won't side with a scum like you who kills for no reason. Essence energy erupted as Davis used the silent erupting finger once more in conjunction with the first layer of extinction lightning judgment, lightning amplification. Stab. His finger pierced into Harmon's chest before exploding with the power of his lightning essence energy. The extinction lightning started to corrode and burn his heart as well as all his internal organs as the lightning strands spread within him. Ah! Harmon's body convulsed on being electrocuted. He shouted in pain but wasn't able to move as he was paralyzed. He tried to escape using his soul, but before he could do that, a bright lance pierced his forehead and stabbed at his soul. Your fate is sealed, Davis stated as he held him up. That bright lance was the technique he had gotten from the second layer of sacred luminance mist, the piercing sacred lance. It was even rumored to have the power to exorcise ghosts effectively, but who knows whether if it was true or not. Harmon's eyes went wide and froze as his eyes abruptly lost their luster. He had unmistakably died at this moment. Davis didn't bother to waste his time. He swiftly absorbed Harmon's deceased soul and refined it using the death book, feeling his soul being rejuvenated. This amount. 2 more peak-level infant soul stage souls, and I could probably break into young soul stage quickly. His face revealed a look of excitement before he calmed himself down. Davis then stored his corpse casually with a calm and indifferent face. He activated the dark concealing shroud art and made his way out of the alley. Just when he was traversing along the streets, he suddenly detected 2 more presences heading to the place where he was before. Davis narrowed his eyes. These 2, aren't they the 2 sky-grade assassins from before? What exactly are they here for? Could it be that they're going to kill a target in that direction, or are they leaving the imperial capital through the southern gate? Davis became curious, so he thought for a moment before he followed them stealthily. But after following those two, he saw that they stopped at the alley where he was before, investigating for a while before returning in the direction of the Dark Earth Organization branch. Davis contemplated their actions for a moment again, because he now possessed a vague doubt that it was because of his death book. Could it be because I wrote, "He waits there till a certain person shows up to end his life" on the death book? So even if I hadn't made a move, he would have already died from getting killed by some other person. In this case, the death book somehow attracted those two assassins to get him killed, but before that could happen, I lied await and killed him. If that is so, then the death book is truly interesting. Davis grinned at the thought but quickly calmed down. Then I will have to be extra careful on what I write on the death book, lest I bring trouble to myself. He sighed, thinking that this death book could even act as a double-edged sword if he wasn't careful. Davis then left the area, heading towards the Dark Earth Organization branch. Once he reached that place, he deactivated the dark concealing shroud art. He used the Dark Organization badge to temporarily deactivate the illusion formation in the underground cellar. He then used the badge again to open the door to the hall. In the Dark Earth Organization branch, main hall. Yellow, who was wallowing in sadness, suddenly saw Davis. He suddenly had a look of fear. "Senior dead end." He shouted and hurriedly ran to him. Davis heard that and headed towards him calmly with hands behind his back. "Is Senior here to withdraw from the mission?" "It might take a long time to find and kill him, but there is no need to withdraw for that reason, is there?" "I can wait for a long time for Senior to complete the mission. I can even wait." Afraid that Davis might withdraw from this mission, Yellow tried to come up with various kinds of reasons to not make him withdraw, but before he could *T, Davis stopped him as he raised his hand slightly. "Senior, please. If you back out, then I will be punished as a result." Yellow anxiously pleaded. "I have completed the mission," Davis said calmly. "Senior, please don't withdraw from this mission. My life depends on it." Yellow looked like he was going to cry soon. Davis snapped his fingers. It made Yellow come out of his reverie and consequently turn the attention of the crowd towards him. "I said that I had completed the peak-level Earth-grade mission." Davis enunciated his words, causing Yellow's mouth to hang abruptly. "Eh?" Yellow's eyes went wide. He felt what Davis had said were. The surrounding crowd were startled as well. They then looked at him as if he was an idiot. Seeing the looks of incomprehension on the people, Davis waved his hand. A corpse flew out and crashed into Yellow. "Warg!" Yellow yelped and saw the corpse's face. His face was one of horror before gradually turning into elation. This is Harmon." Yellow shouted out like an idiot. It was as if he obtained some treasure. Then a voice startled Yellow. It was from Davis. Yes. You have completed the mission, I'll just formally inform the receptionist, that's all. I'll get your badge and the reward soon." Yellow excitedly said and ran off. Davis waited there for a while, receiving looks of awe, astonishment, jealousy, and even other emotions. He then noticed that some people were approaching him. The two people were the two black-robed people from before. Davis entered a state of caution but didn't show it outside. "Fellow assassin, are you the one who battled near the southern gate?" the black-robed person asked in a hoarse voice. That voice made it difficult to determine the gender. Davis just stared at him before questioning them. "Who are you two?" "Oh, it was bad of us to not introduce ourselves. I am Left Sky and he is Right Sky," the other black-robed person replied. The gender of this voice was difficult to determine as well. "Way to go, brother, you just revealed our gender," Right Sky complained. "And now he knows that we are siblings." "How many times have I told you to call me by my nickname during work?" Left Sky rebutted. But he could have just struck at us as good friends. He would have never known that we were twins. Right Sky shouted in anger. Hey! 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 Davis shouted in confusion to stop them. Didn't these two just act cool before? Now, why are they revealing their traits one by one, or is it just an act? His shouting attracted those two, and they turned immediately embarrassed, but didn't show it outside. What business do you have with me? Davis asked calmly. That is, seeing that you have completed a mission that is quite difficult to complete, we decided to invite you to this Sky Grade mission. Left Sky replied and took out a jade crystal. It was the type to hold information. Just before he gave out that jade crystal, a voice could be heard. Senior Dead End. Here is your Peak Earth Grade Dark Earth Organization's badge. Yellow came running like a 4-year-old child. It could be seen that he was really happy. He arrived in front of Davis and handed over the badge as well as the reward. Davis collected both the badge and the reward as he stored them in his space ring. Senior. You are now officially a Peak Earth Grade assassin. Davis nodded his head indifferently as he turned to face Left Sky. Left Sky then gave out the scroll to Davis. Davis then opened the scroll. His expression was one of astonishment, then turned into an ironic smile. Mission, abduct Davis Lowrit. Type, abduction. Grade, low-level Sky Grade mission. Requirement, peak-level Earth Grade assassin and above. Description, first prince of the Lowrit Empire, aged 9. Known to be protected by elite guards of the Empire at all times. His cultivation should be around the first stage of body tempering cultivation and essence gathering cultivation. His guard's cultivation should be around that of the third stage in both the body tempering cultivation and essence gathering cultivation. Sometimes he is under even the protection of his father, the Lowrit Emperor. This month is the only chance to complete this mission without much difficulty. Target's image. Reward, low-level Sky Grade Dark Organization's badge, 4,000 purple coins. Mission issuer, anonymous. What the actual F***K? Did these two just invite me to abduct myself? Davis rolled his eyes. He would have laughed out loud if it were not for his calm-headedness. So Dead End. Will you work with us or move alone? So far, what kind of information have you gathered about this mission? All normal ones. If you ask our informants, they will tell you. Davis took a moment to decide before answering. I'm not doing this mission. What? Why? Left Sky and Right Sky were both dumbfounded. Just when Davis tried to give some reason for his rejection, Yellow, who was on the side, hurriedly explained. 2 seniors. It isn't that Senior Dead End rejected your request, it's just that Senior Dead End doesn't like this kind of job. Yellow sadly said. Nice job, Yellow. Davis gave a thumbs up to Yellow mentally. Davis chose safety and being incognito over having fun. He was sure if he had joined that mission, then he would have to kill those two and possibly others, which would have marked him suspicious if he had been the only one to remain alive. So he decided to kill them without accepting the mission, as he can remain from any suspicion that might be possibly targeted at him after he had killed them. At the most, he would have been able to have fun if he had joined that mission by seeing the incredulous looks of the dying assassins when they finally know that they had been killed by the target whom they were planning to abduct. Oh? Personal preference. Then leave it then. Saying that, the twin assassins left dejectedly. Right, leave that mission. We have other Sky Grade missions that might fit Senior's criteria. Let's go meet the receptionist for more information. Yellow said as he went off in a direction. Davis followed him and arrived in front of the reception. Congratulations on becoming a peak-level Earth Grade assassin, Dead End. The receptionist's tone was now favorable. Let me take a look at all the Sky Grade missions that you have, Davis said rather indifferently. With your rank, you can only see up to low-level Sky Grade missions, Dead End. Fine. The receptionist then pulled out a few jade crystals which obviously had information on low-level sky-grade missions. Davis then probed the jade crystal with his soul sense. His expression changed into one of anger before he hid it quickly. In the jade crystals, there were also missions to abduct Clara, Diana, and even the newly born Edward. He had the urge to crush those jade crystals, but stopped himself from doing that. He could laugh it off when he saw his name in a mission, but he couldn't take it when he saw his siblings being targeted. Makes sense, if I am a target then they are too. Wait. These are just low-level sky-grade missions, maybe even Dad and Mom are listed in the higher-grade missions. Just who is the mission issuer? It might possibly be that Emperor Triter, or that Emperor Raven for all I know, damn it. Davis felt helpless right now. If he had known who was targeting them, then it will make it easier for him to kill whoever it was. He was not wary of famous people, he was only wary of people who hide their identities. With the death book, he could easily kill off famous people who were within his limits, but cannot do the same to people who hide their identities, as he would have to discover their identities first, which makes it a little difficult for him to kill them. He took a few seconds to calm himself down before probing into the jade crystals once again. He found some suitable missions for himself. If he was able to kill those targets, then he will be able to reach even the mid-level young soul stage sooner. After accepting multiple missions, he then left the Dark Earth Organization branch and headed off to kill a target. This target was a powerful merchant of the Lowered Empire who engages in shady business secretly. His age was over 200 years old and his soul cultivation was that of low-level young soul stage. After Davis had used the death book to bait and kill him, it was almost dawn. He absorbed his deceased soul and refined it. He felt his soul energy increase rapidly as he absorbed the refined soul energy, and after a few minutes, he felt his soul energy fill reaching its limit. Just when he tried to break through, he encountered a bottleneck. Things won't be that simple, will it? Davis sighed. Seeing that it was late, he made his way to the royal castle. He decided that he would turn in the mission later tonight or tomorrow. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these few days, Davis concentrated on his efforts to break through into the young soul stage. He turned in his target's corpse on the first day, and got the low-level sky-grade Dark Earth Organization's badge, and 1,000 purple coins as his reward. After this, he thought of visiting Evelyn before deciding to concentrate on his soul cultivation first. He felt confident in breaking through, so he stayed in seclusion in the royal castle as 3 days passed. In the evening, Davis, who was in seclusion, finally achieved low-level young soul stage. He could now feel his soul residing in his soul weirdly palpitate in resonance with the death book. He felt that his death book probably gained a new ability, but he wasn't in a hurry to find out, so he put the matter aside. He kind of felt immensely proud of himself for breaking through the bottleneck in 3 days, before his thoughts quickly moved onto someone else. Yes. Today night, I will finally visit Evelyn no matter what. Just as he made his way into the study, he saw Elia cultivating there with a peaceful expression on her face. She sat in a lotus position while focusing, but it just made her look cute. It almost made him want to pinch her face, but decided not to, since her cultivation might go berserk if he had disturbed her. He just sat and watched her face with a smile on his face. He couldn't help but think her off as a cute animal, it even all the more made him want to pat her head. He hurriedly shook his head. This isn't right, I'm acting too close to her. It's almost as if we are siblings. He thought, a little disoriented. Davis unknowingly moved closer to her. He then looked at her face again, his face was at arm's length away from her face. This time his eyes involuntarily stopped at her lips. He couldn't help but feel an unknown emotion in his heart. Elia, who was cultivating, suddenly opened her eyes. She caught him staring at her lips as she felt her face burn up. Davis had seen her open her eyes, so he involuntarily made a sound. Damn, I got caught. Davis had a calm face outside, but his heart was beating slightly faster. He stood up and walked back whistling as if nothing happened. He then calmly left the study and headed to the library. Alia, who was seated there, clenched her fists in embarrassment. Her face still didn't stop burning up. What was that? What was he doing so close to my face? Why did he keep staring at me? Thoughts swirled around her head as she entered her own world of delusions. After that, she couldn't get into the mood to cultivate no matter how she tried. Davis, who was on his way to the library, chanted in his head. I'm not a lolicon, I'm not a lolicon, I'm not a lolicon, I'm not a lolicon. He kept chanting it as he noticed a slight problem in the lower part of his body. I've hit puberty, he thought wryly. He would have been happier at the fact that he had hit puberty, but the situation that he had found out in wanted to made him hide in a hole. He felt weird since morning, but as he was cultivating his soul, he put the matter at the back of his head, which now led to his embarrassment. Anyway, this is bad, and just when I am going to meet Evelyn. I hope I don't make stupid decisions at her place. He felt that someone was playing with his life. He was determined to not let his lower part of the body influence his thoughts. Davis then arrived at the library to pass his time. He read some information on how to use his soul effectively and read about some miscellaneous information which could possibly be useful one day. Night finally arrived. For the first time, Davis felt that he had never waited so much in his life. He left the royal castle and made his way to the Calden Emporium. The Calden Emporium was still open. Cultivator shops are normally open during the night, as well as they don't require much sleep but are keen on their profits. Davis wore a black robe as he activated his dark concealing shroud art to conceal his aura but not his presence. He then entered the Calden Emporium casually. The staff saw him come inside, but they didn't go disturb him since he was dressed in a black robe. Black-robed people usually conceal their identity and don't want to be disturbed unless they require some help, so they didn't opt to go near him. He then made his way to the Calden Pill store straight away without taking any detour. Just when he entered the Calden Pill store, he was greeted by the same young lady he met last time. Dear customer, how may I help you? Davis had a headache. He didn't want to reveal his voice or his disguised voice either. He just pointed at the pills kept in a shelf randomly. Oh, what kind of pill do you like, senior? He ignored her, went to grab the catalog that was placed on the desk near the entrance. The young lady got mad and started to ignore him, as well as she went minding her own business. She only approached Davis to get acquainted and earn a sum from the commission if he bought something. Meanwhile, he used his soul to probe around the Calden Pill store. He was confident that with his soul cultivation, no one could detect his probing here unless they had an adult soul stage expert hidden here. He got sight of Evelyn's location, so he broke the jade crystal silently when no one was looking. Evelyn, who was cultivating with all her mind in a room, was just about to swallow the pill which Davis gave in her mouth. She felt something break in her space ring. She got it out and it was the pieces of the jade crystal. He's here. Evelyn's eyes went wide. He really came. But how? With all those guards assigned to him, he managed to sneak out. Or did he come with some other people? Evelyn had her doubts, but she quickly got up and headed to the hall of the Calden Pill store, but she suddenly stopped right at the door of her room. No, if I go receive him personally, then people will suspect us. She thought. Miss, where are you going? Maisie asked. Maisie, go invite a certain person who is in the hall of our Calden Pill store to my room. But miss, who exactly should I invite? Maisie asked in confusion. Evelyn contemplated for a moment before answering. You just stand there in the main hall, that certain person will probably come to you. This? Okay. Maisie replied in confusion before heading out herself. Davis, who was waiting there, was browsing the catalog, as if he won't accept anyone's help, and he finally saw a young girl coming from a certain direction. He recognized her as Evelyn's servant. He then saw her being fidgety and looking around for some reason. Is she possibly searching for me? Davis thought. He closed the catalog and then approached her. It didn't take long for him to stand in front of her. Maisie, who saw the black-robed person, asked nervously. Are you? Davis just nodded his head. He thought she was going to ask if she was Prince Davis, so he quickly nodded his head. He didn't know that she was just going to ask if he was the person her young miss wanted to invite. Maisie then nodded and said, My young miss invited you to her room, please follow me. She then left in a certain direction. Davis then followed her. He knew where she was going, but he couldn't just go alone. After a few minutes, they arrived in front of a door. She opened it while he went in. She then followed him inside. Suddenly, Davis and Evelyn, who saw each other, started chuckling together for no reason. Maisie, who saw this, couldn't understand. She could tell from the laughing voice that the other party was a male. Davis, who saw Evelyn smiling, did not waste time, and got to the point, as he didn't know how long he could stay here. Miss Evelyn, I've come to propose to you officially. Evelyn was startled. It was just as she thought, he liked her for some reason now. No. Young miss is already engaged, you can't propose to her. Maisie defended as she stood in front of Evelyn. They then both were startled. Davis looked at Evelyn only to see her laugh gently. You finally came, my love. Evelyn said teasingly and winked at Davis. He got the underlying meaning in her wink. This woman really has guts and can keep her calm. She even dares to make misunderstandings and is a little playful. Davis thought, but decided to not throw sand on her efforts. Oh my Evelyn, how long has it been till I last saw you? He extended his hand, playing along. It has been too long, my love. She took his hand, betting on the fact that he won't do anything to her. Miss, you are having an affair? No way. Maisie, who saw this, got confused that she started pulling at her hair. They both then laughed together, seeing that she was tricked. Maisie got even more confused, so Davis finally stopped his act and removed his hood. You are that Br. Prince Davis. Maisie almost blurted out, but she quickly held her tongue. Did this girl just call me a brat? Davis's eyes twitched. Evelyn just smiled at the sight. Davis, who also saw that, was thankful to Maisie for creating a good atmosphere. He didn't know how to create an atmosphere for her to comfortably talk with him. After all, he wasn't well versed in approaching women. Do you now get it? Maisie? Evelyn asked her calmly. Yes. Maisie was embarrassed for her misunderstanding. Prince Davis, do you have another black robe? Evelyn asked. I do have, but for what? She didn't answer him but spoke to Maisie. Maisie, wear that black robe and wander around our Cultivation Emporium for some time. Here, wear this too. Evelyn removed her amulet and gave it to Maisie. It had the power to conceal one's aura. Davis also took an unused black robe and gave it to her now that he had understood her plan. It was to act like him for a while. Maisie wore it and went out of the room. She now knew that they were meeting secretly. Now Prince Davis, as you requested, we are all alone. Evelyn smiled. Alone, seems like it. Davis probed around with his soul sense, so he knew that they were absolutely alone. But there was no need to send her out too. No? Maisie is talkative, so she will interfere with our conversation, which might possibly anger you, Your Highness. Then you have my thanks, Davis said as he nodded. It's my pleasure, please sit down. Evelyn then sat at a table, and he followed suit. Now that we are alone, are you not afraid that I will do anything to you? Davis grinned as he asked. Since she seemed like the playful type, he teased her. What can the prince possibly do to harm me? Maybe you have your guards outside the Cultivation Emporium. No? Oh, this woman thinks that I got here with an entourage. Well, I'm not going to correct her either. Haha, Miss Evelyn sure is perceptive. This is only normal, Evelyn said as she poured a cup of tea for Davis. Davis took the tea and probed it. Seeing that there were nothing harmful in it, he drank. It doesn't hurt him to be cautious after all. Why? She asked suddenly. Spat. Davis spat out the tea at the side. He thought that she found out his probing of the tea. Why did you say that? Evelyn had a complex face when she asked that. She didn't mind spitting that action of his. Now Davis knew what she had asked. Cough. Miss Evelyn, I started liking you, so I am a little serious about this marriage, Davis replied truthfully. Leaving aside why, I'll ask when. When did you start liking me? Evelyn had her eyes narrowed, her gaze sharp. From the moment I met you. He said calmly. You're lying. She sighed. No, that is the truth. He strongly replied. Why does this feel like an interrogation? Davis had a vague doubt. Then why did you ask me to consider our marriage when we first met? She made a sound of dissatisfaction as she asked. Davis then said seriously. At that time, I felt that you were clearly against this marriage, so I spoke up. And now? She questioned again. Davis replied with a glint in his eyes, now, I realize that I like you very much. So will you accept this proposal? Isn't that selfish? Evelyn laughed sarcastically. Yes, it is. I want you for myself, Davis replied shamelessly. You? What if I refuse? She narrowed her eyes again. Then I can only work hard to change your mind. I am sure that I will somehow make you like me, he grinned as he said. After a few moments of tension and silence, Evelyn unknowingly, visibly relaxed. This woman. She's acting tough. Is she treating me as an adult? No, she is treating me as her future. Makes sense that she is this serious about it. Davis was watching her every expression to find out what she was thinking, and he could only rely on his perception to do so. Davis then sighed, if only Clara were here, it would be way easy to hold an advantage in a conversation. But in this case, I can see her ruining this marriage 100%. He secretly laughed to himself. Cough, so what is your answer? Miss Evelyn. There's no way I can give it so soon, not without knowing much about you. Evelyn glared at his shamelessness, but somehow she liked his straightforwardness. Maybe because he is cute. She thought. You have a point, I wish to know more about you as well. If we have the opportunity, then we'll tour around the royal capital one day. Davis nodded. She never expected him to invite her to take her out, so it kind of came as a surprise for her as she fell silent. The atmosphere in the room again got silent and awkward. Ha, I wonder what cultivation level has Miss Evelyn reached? Davis randomly asked a question. Nothing that can catch your eye. Suddenly, her voice changed to an icy tone. Oi, it's not like I asked your weight. Davis's eye twitched. Seeing that he chanced upon a bad topic, he tried to say something. He quickly then glanced around to search for a topic and said to her. I guess I disturbed Miss Evelyn's cultivation session. It's no wonder that you are angry with me for asking about your cultivation, Davis said with an all-knowing tone. But he then later panicked as he realized that this was also a topic concerning her cultivation. What perception? Evelyn thought, her eyes wide. But he already knew that she was cultivating when he probed around with his soul sense when he first came here. But hearing his tone, something in Evelyn finally snapped. You just want to know my cultivation stage, don't you? In fact, you already know it, right? Do you want to make fun of me as well? Alright, I have only reached peak level copper stage, peak level energy condensation stage. Miserable, right? At my age, with my status, I should have at least reached the third stage in both by now. Go ahead and laugh. Laugh all you want. She had tears forming in her eyes. She waved her hands as she said that with a livid expression on her face, as if she had been wronged. What young mistress of the Calden family? What I am blessed to be married to the prince. Does my opinion even matter in my family? I am just outright being sold off to you. Tears dropped like a fountain from her eyes as she looked at him with grievance in her eyes. Davis was extremely dumbfounded. One moment she acted mischievously, another moment she acted tough, and another moment she cried. He couldn't say if it was acting or not, but seeing her cry, he felt sad for some reason. He didn't have a deep relationship with her. He felt that any consolation at this point would just feel like a formality. Davis looked at her with a complex expression and said comfortingly, "You've worked hard." Evelyn froze. He just left her with that sentence, as remaining here shamelessly would make her even more embarrassed. All those years, she tried so hard to cultivate, even though her talent was subpar at best. She would cultivate day and night, sometimes even without resting for a month. Compared to many geniuses, her talent was trash. If she wasn't the family head's daughter, then she would not even be a respected member of her family. With her looks, at best she would have been sold off to someone in the name of marriage. No one had acknowledged her hard work other than Maisie. Almost everyone looked at her like an object to increase the status of their family. At that moment, she truly felt content and acknowledged as she cried out her grievances. On the way to the royal castle, Davis felt truly bad. He believed that he had made her cry. He felt like he shouldn't have acted selfish, like an a-hole. He didn't know that her cultivation was her sore spot. If he had known, then he wouldn't have dared to ask. Now he realized that woman was putting up a front in front of everybody, all the while she bears a huge burden in her heart. From this, he even could tell that she had an inferiority complex about her talent and cultivation. Is it too bad to be a little forceful? He thought as he shook his head. He wanted to make her his, so he pushed her a bit in courting her. Was it wrong? But what he didn't know was that sentence he uttered had helped him increase his impression on her to the next level. Midway, he suddenly stopped. Damn it, I don't feel good. He got angry and took out a jade crystal. Sorry, looks like your death date is moved to today. He thought coldly as he headed to assassinate the target. Originally he planned to kill them from tomorrow, but decided to take his anger out on them today. Davis, like before, baited and killed the target while also getting some combat experience. He also implemented a failsafe plan in case his target tried to escape, just like before. After he had successfully assassinated the target and absorbed the deceased soul, he felt getting one step closer to the next level in soul cultivation. He believed that he could make his soul cultivation experience leaps and bounds as long as he had the death book and the appropriate souls. He then made his way back to the royal castle, as it was almost dawn. Days passed as he went on killing his targets one by one. Soon, he almost became a legend in the Dark Earth organization for his efficiency and credibility for killing his targets. He felt like he couldn't talk with Evelyn because he felt awkward to see her once again. Still, he wanted to talk once after that, but he just couldn't find her because she went back to her manor. 20 days passed as he killed off 8 low-level sky-grade mission targets. Almost 4 of them had low-level young soul stage cultivation, while the others had peak-level infant soul stage cultivation. During these 20 days, he found no one targeting him or his siblings all night as an assassin, so he failed to finish off any sky-grade cultivators who might possibly come after them. He felt that this was strange since this was the perfect opportunity to target him and his siblings since Logan was out of the royal capital. He had also tried to find out what was the new ability of the Death Book, but he couldn't discover it to no avail. He almost doubted whether if his Death Book had been granted a new ability or not, also whether if it had stopped evolving or not. Regardless, he successfully achieved mid-level young soul stage after the ruthless execution that he had performed. He then increased his cultivation to peak-level iron stage and peak-level energy condensation stage. From the execution performed and the number of souls absorbed, he understood that he needed the soul of at least 5 mid-level young soul stage experts to advance to the next level. Fortunately, his Death Book was extremely helpful in that regard, so he didn't need to worry about it. The royal capital was in a panic as powerful figures, famous for their wealth, kept dying one by one. Those powerful people were none other than the targets Davis had killed without any mercy. So he was not in fear at all, but that can't be said to be the same as other people. Davis understood that his actions were tantamount to declaring war against evil people and organizations, but he did it anyway, as no one would be able to find his identity unless they were to bring in some adult soul stage cultivators. He also understood that his actions attracted his father indirectly, as his father was the emperor. This made his father leave a little sooner from the Alfred kingdom. Logan was on his way to the royal capital after he had heard about a powerful assassin known as Dead End, who always kills his target without fail. But he was not anxious because he did his homework, and knew that Dead End's targets were all scums and degenerates and definitely wouldn't be his family, so Logan was worried but not anxious. He was worried that the strength of the royal capital would further decline as powerful cultivators would leave, fearing the assassin, regardless if they were degenerates or not. So he left a little sooner to put a stop to this assassin known as Dead End, even though he felt a little thankful to him for clearing the royal capital of vermin. The world welcomed dawn. Davis, who had just returned from his hunt, knew that he wouldn't be able to sneak out anymore due to his father coming home sometime today. He headed to the study to finally take some rest, even sleep. He felt kind of exhausted for not sleeping for more than 20 days. He went hunting, cultivated all 3 cultivation system, which took a huge toll on his body because he wanted to improve as much as possible before his father returned. Cultivators don't need that much sleep, but it is still a process that one enjoys, so even cultivators have the habit of sleeping from time to time because it helps them relax. Aw damn, I'm so exhausted. A night of good sleep will rejuvenate me. Even though it was almost morning, cultivators didn't care when they slept. Just as he opened the door to the study, he saw Elia. Lightning cracked as sparks of electric current swirled around Elia. She was seated in a lotus position with a serious expression painting her face. She's breaking through to the next stage, very good. Davis had a happy expression on his face. A few minutes passed before the lightning which sparkled around her subsided, and her face returned to a calm expression. Then when she checked her cultivation, her expression was one of elation. Davis smiled as he said, "Elia, congratulations on breaking through the energy condensation stage." She nodded her head, still in elation. Suddenly, a powerful soul sense probed the royal castle. "Oh? Looks like Dad is back." Davis was startled before he recognized the soul sense's aura. Even though Davis was just in mid-level young soul stage, he could detect being probed by a low-level adult soul stage cultivator. He could even probably detect probing from a mid-level adult soul stage cultivator since his soul is so powerful. Davis was sure that he can fight his dad equally if they just fought with their soul cultivation. The Emperor is... Elia widened her eyes. Davis rubbed his chin as he spoke, "Yes, and it looks like that we got caught." Elia's face turned pale. Logan, who returned with his entourage, floated above the royal castle. The first thing he did was not return, but extend his soul sense to scan around the royal castle for any abnormalities. He saw Claire together with Diana and Edward in her room, Clara cultivating alone in her room, and Davis in his study with Elia. Seeing that there were no abnormalities, he removed his soul sense and relaxed but frowned. The cultivation technique that Davis's maid trains in resembles the extinction lightning judgment. What on earth is he thinking? But he soon sighed. Then he entered the royal castle through the entrance as many greeted him, as he walked past them like an emperor. He straightway headed for the throne hall as the master of ceremonies announced the return of the emperor. It echoed throughout the royal castle like thunder. Clara, Davis and all other subordinates who heard that, headed to the throne hall. Seeing that his family and his subordinates all came to pay respects to him, he nodded his head. The royal family can be cozy all they want in an informal occasion, but in a formal occasion such as this, they have to give their respects and be formal to their emperor. Logan exchanged a few pleasantries with his subordinates as few minutes passed by, then suddenly, a guard came running in the throne hall with hurried steps. The guard then hurriedly reported, "Emperor." A black-robed man with unknown origins claims to know where the traitors of the rebellion are. He currently is in front of the entrance of our royal castle awaiting your majesty's permission. Let him in. Logan's eyes glowed. He couldn't wait to finish off those two bastards who escaped at that time. Yes. The guard hurriedly relayed to the people below. After a few minutes, a black-robed man walked into the throne room with calm steps. He then bowed. Who are you? Do you know the whereabouts of those two traitors? Hendrickson asked the black-robed man with an interrogative expression. The black-robed man didn't say anything but just waved his hand. Thud. A corpse with a hole in its chest suddenly fell on the floor of the throne hall. Immediately, everyone was alarmed and extended their perception to the corpse. Logan also extended his perception over to the corpse, but refrained from probing the black-robed man, as it would be considered rude. This is Cooper Hawkwood. Hendrickson shouted. Everyone's eyes went wide, including Logan. Hendrickson was just about to ask a few questions when suddenly Davis approached the black-robed man. Seeing Davis approach the black-robed man, he immediately probed the black-robed man with his soul sense, as he couldn't care less about being rude anymore. Just when he probed, the black-robed man suddenly moved and rushed to where Davis moved. Davis, who saw that, quickly moved back as guards near him hurriedly rushed to defend him. Case. You bastard. You dare. Logan's eyes went wide as he shouted in fury, and hurriedly cast a soul technique. Swirling currents of bright ocean quickly submerged Case as he shouted in agony. His soul was ground by swirling currents of sharp needles as he collapsed. It didn't even take a few seconds for him to die. What Logan used was the fourth layer technique of the sacred luminance mist, celestial needle ocean. It is a highly destructive technique, which can even pierce through soul defenses to attack the soul of a person. It is also used as an area of effect attack, used to attack multiple opponents at the same time. But it was slower than the second layer technique of the sacred luminance mist, sacred piercing lance. Although it was slow, Logan wasn't sure if his sacred piercing lance can kill him in one hit, so he used the celestial needle ocean for a sure hit kill. And fortunately, it was successful since the distance between the two of them was small. Logan heaved a sigh of relief. I can't believe that he used his own comrade as a means to delay our reaction, as he planned to abduct or kill Davis. Claire, who was beside Davis, said with a serious expression on her face. She felt as if she had failed her duties to protect her children. Fortunately, he failed. Logan sighed. Davis, why did you go closer to him? Didn't you think that it could be dangerous? Logan asked with a questioning gaze. I felt his gaze on me after he took out the corpse, so I moved closer to investigate him. He suddenly attacked me, but don't worry, I was cautious the whole time, that's why I quickly pulled back. I know, don't try to do something so stupid later. Claire said as she berated Davis. All right, Mom. Logan and Claire then moved to take care of the matter of those two corpses. Clara, who was there, couldn't detect any lies from her brother, so she gazed at those two corpses curiously. Davis, who was alone, slowly looked down and grinned secretly. Just as planned. This whole scenario was orchestrated by him, but he didn't think it would go this well. Before Davis returned to the royal castle, he instructed Case to do as he said, and it worked without a hitch. He ordered him to come to the royal castle seeking an audience with the emperor using a piece of certain information. When he notices the emperor return to the royal castle, Case Farnwan, who was on the lookout the whole time, noticed the commotion in the royal castle and made his move. He then did what Davis instructed him to do one by one. When arriving at the entrance of the royal castle, he was ordered to say that he had information on those two traitors and request an audience with the emperor. Then he was ordered to wait for the permission of the emperor to go inside the royal castle. Next, when he was in the throne room, he was ordered to throw out Cooper's corpse and gaze at a little boy when someone asked him a question. Finally, he was then ordered to attack the little boy when he sees one approaching him, which ultimately led to his death. Davis did all this because he wanted his father to be the one to avenge his deceased family so that his father could let go of the burden in his heart. A day passed after that incident. Logan felt a burden in his heart disappear. He took care of the matter of those two traitors. He saw that Cooper had a hole in his chest, so he didn't suspect anything at all. That hole was created by Case's power, so he wasn't suspicious. Davis did order Case to put a hole in Cooper's chest way before he entered the royal castle yesterday. After taking care of these matters, Logan probed the whole royal capital with his senses as he moved to each location, but he couldn't find dead end at all. All he found was a few assassins lurking near the royal castle as he killed them later. The assassins he killed included those two assassins who were named Left Sky and Right Sky. But Davis didn't know that at all. If he knew, then that would have removed a headache for him. "Elia? Are you ready?" Davis asked as he touched. "Yes." Elia replied with a soft voice, her petite body was trembling. "I'm entering now," Davis said with a confident expression on his face. Creak. Davis opened the door to the Emperor's quarters as he went inside with Elia. "Father, as you requested, I came with Elia." Logan, who was seated near his desk, nodded his head. Yesterday, after the incident, Davis was asked by his father to visit his room, as he wanted to talk with him about something. He was also then told to bring Elia along with him. "Davis, demonstrate your cultivation for me," Logan said that as he rested his chin on his hands. Davis nodded his head and demonstrated his cultivation for him to see. Black lightning sparkled around Davis as he emitted his energy from his body. Then his body emitted a gray aura, as the pressure from his body that was being generated increased. "Excellent. You have reached peak-level iron stage and peak-level energy condensation stage." Logan's expression was one of proudness. To have reached peak-level iron stage in a few months from mid-level iron stage, Davis worked hard during the day to cultivate his body. He had the required resources, so he concentrated on quickly increasing his body cultivation these few months. Davis didn't show his soul cultivation since Elia was here as well. Logan didn't ask him to demonstrate it either. It was a tacit understanding between them. Logan then turned his head towards Elia. Elia, who saw that, immediately started trembling again. She clenched her fists as she tried to calm down, but to no avail, she couldn't. "Elia? Was it?" "Why, yes. Demonstrate your cultivation too." Elia gulped as she stayed silent. "What's wrong?" "As the prince's maid, you have the duty to protect his life and also take care of his needs. I heard that your talent was good, so I wanted to see what kind of cultivation level you have reached." She looked at Davis only to see him nod his head gently with a smile on his face. Seeing that she also nodded a little and demonstrated her cultivation with determination. Lightning sparkled around Elia as she emitted energy from her body. It was a flash of normal lightning tinged with a small extinction attribute, as she didn't have a lightning elemental like Davis. After that, her body's aura emitted brown-red color, as the pressure from her body radiated a tyrant kind of aura. Logan nodded his head and commented, "Not bad for a maid, but do you understand now that you are even more indebted to the royal family?" "Yes." She looked at the Emperor and replied with a brave front. "Good. You can leave now. I want to talk to my son alone." Elia bowed and silently withdrew as she quickly walked away from the room. After she went out, there were a few moments of silence before Davis asked, "Aren't you going to ask me about it, father?" Logan said with a calm face. "Why?" "I believe that you have your own reasoning to train her with our monopolized techniques. I trust your decision." "Father." Davis was moved. He thought he would have a big fight with his father just now, but he didn't expect that he would let them off this easily. "Don't give me that look. If the deceased royal family was still alive, you would have been executed for handing our secret techniques to a mere maid. But since I'm the emperor now, I get to decide the rules. And since you're my son, you get a lot of leeway at that. Logan grinned with a profound expression on his face. Just make sure that those techniques don't get leaked for some reason. Logan then frowned. Davis chuckled. I will, that goes without saying. Logan then nodded his head, satisfied with the answer his son gave. And what was it that you said that you wanted to talk to me before? Davis then asked, curious as to why his father called him here. Yes, that was the main reason I called you here, Logan replied as he took a deep breath. Do you know how I met your mother? Do you know how we fell in love with each other? My mother. Father, did you just call me here to talk about your love story? Davis chuckled. Haven't you ever thought about your mother's parents? Haven't you ever thought about why your mother doesn't talk about her origins? Huh. Maybe because my mother's parents are dead. He more or less assumed it like this since his mother frowned upon anything related to her origins. Logan shook his head. Davis got a bad feeling about this. Why are you now suddenly asking this? You met the Ruth Empire's Empress, right? Logan didn't answer but asked a question instead. I remember, Empress Isabella Ruth. Davis nodded his head. His mind couldn't help but trail off to a glamorous world. Why is he bringing her up now? It can't be that she is my mother's sister or something like that, right? He thought incredulously. Rumor has it that Isabella reached the fabled 6th stage and successfully left the continent. Logan suddenly dropped a piece of explosive news that ringed like a bell in Davis's ears. Impossible. Isn't our continent sealed by a barrier, which makes it hard for people above the 5th stage to enter? Maybe if you see it from the outside world's perspective, our continent is almost like a secret realm. Davis shouted in disbelief. It seems like the barrier only restricts outsiders, and not the ones who are born in this continent. Even so, how did she reach the 6th stage, which is truly difficult to reach here? Davis had his doubts. Even if she reached the 6th stage, so what? The ancestors of this continent were once at this stage too. I told you right. That she got an inheritance. It must have been really powerful. Davis finally nodded his head in understanding. It's no wonder that she could reach the throne so soon, at her age even when her predecessors are still alive. It looks like her ambitions are much higher than conquering a lousy continent. Good for us though. Logan commented while feeling a little jealous of her strength. And what does that have to do with my mother? Davis looked at him and questioned as he vaguely understood but wasn't sure of it. Logan said in a solemn tone. Your mother is not of our continent. Davis widened his eyes and clenched his fists. Because he knew that if the Grand Sea continent were to know about it, then she would be targeted by all the empires. You know that every 15 years is the opening of our realm for us and the outsiders, right? Logan held Davis's shoulders. Yes. During the opening of the realm, various 5th stage and lower cultivators swarm like bees to invade the continent, but luckily, all the forces of the continent join hands every 15 years temporarily to stop their invasion. 5th stage experts of the continent are very few, and less nowadays. That's why they don't take part in wars and instead, defend the continent from the outsiders. The next opening of our realm is... He continued. In 2 years, right. So you met Mother 13 years ago. Davis interjected. Very perceptive, yes. 13 years ago was when our realm last opened to the outsiders. Logan nodded. He then smiled. She and I were originally enemies, but fate played us together. But I am very thankful for the heavens for that as well. I won't go detailed into our past, but your mother forbids herself from returning to her homeland, severing her martial career. She made a cruel choice on herself to stay with me. That's why I want you to be just like Empress Isabella Ruth, who had carved a path for herself in this boundless world. By the time he finished the sentence, Logan held Davis's shoulder tightly. Make yourself strong, stronger than me, stronger than everybody, so that you would make your mom immensely proud. I will. Davis answered with fervor and determination glowing in his eyes. Then once you are high above, return to our continent, and prove that your mom's decision at that time was not wrong. Yes. Davis's blood boiled as he clenched his fists. Logan calmed down before saying, "In a year the Grand Sea Continent meet will take place. I want you to participate in it, and get the first place just like I did." Wasn't Empress Isabella Ruth stronger than you? Davis asked in confusion. She was probably receiving her inheritance at that time, so she didn't show up for the competition. Logan grinned and said, "Oh. What's so great about the competition for me to participate in it?" Davis wanted to know why he should participate in a competition that he wasn't interested at all. "There is another entrance," Logan suddenly said. "What? Another?" Davis's eyes went wide. "Yes, and it only allows people below 30 of bone age to pass through that entrance," Logan said. His tone was one of disappointment. "So, the competition is for choosing the young heroes to stop the invasion of the outsiders in that entrance." "Yes, spots will be handed out for the top 200 geniuses to enter that entrance." "Ah, so the powerful people are monopolizing the loot they get from the invaders." "I understand." Davis laughed sarcastically as he understood. "Yes, this is how the world works, but it won't be so easy to kill a genius from the outsiders as they have escaped talismans, while we don't," Logan said in a grave tone. "I see." Davis shrugged because it didn't matter if they had escaped talismans or not, he can kill them in an instant after all. Even if they have looted, it'll only be the worth of mid-level sky grade and lower but not higher. "Wait, then why don't you guys just soul search their minds for their cultivation techniques and information about their homeland?" "We tried, but all their souls have been sealed by higher powers from leaking information. They can't even divulge even if they wanted to share their information." "Even Mom?" Davis asked as he clenched his fists. "Yes, that's why I wanted you to get stronger since you have a powerful soul. If it's you, then I can be assured that you can remove the seal from her soul sooner, and I believe that you can grow stronger than anyone else in a short period of time," Logan said as if he had blind confidence in his son. "Why do you say so?" Davis narrowed his eyes as he felt it be fishy. "Your soul has grown much stronger, and that amulet isn't powerful enough to block my probing, so I obviously know that you have at least reached the young soul stage." Logan looked smugly at Davis as if he won a battle against him. "Haha, looks like I got caught. I thought I would give you a surprise during the competition," Davis said, a little glad. He failed to consider the amulet's power for blocking people from probing. "Looks like it couldn't block an adult soul stage's soul sense." "Don't be stupid. If I didn't know, then I wouldn't send you to the competition at all in the first place. Your safety is the most important after all," Logan berated him. "And above all else, you are only 9 years old," Logan said with a grin. Davis and Logan then looked at each other with an underlying meaning in it. Davis was thankful that his father didn't ask about how he managed to increase his soul cultivation quickly. Logan obviously understood faintly that even if he asked Davis, he wouldn't answer this question. So Logan didn't ask about it, or else it would have made things awkward between them.